The countdown to the end of the world has begun. 2, 1, 0. Everyone got an alert on their phone, warning that a disaster was about to hit the planet. While half the world was being attacked by monsters, our main character Hoyoung Lee was just chilling. Walking down the street, he finds a female monster lost and stuck in a bear trap.
Help me, Leon!
He doesn't know if he should help her or just let her die, but in the end he set her free just because she handed him an orange pill, very mysterious. While he was thinking whether to take it or not, an explosion goes off in the middle of the city, and a giant tower bursts out of the ground. Since it was already the end of the world anyway, he just popped the pill. An energy covered his body and system screens appeared, telling him he gained the power Seiya status. A book appeared in front of him with a warning that he had 15 days to prepare before the gates of the apocalypse opened. He spent those days training his speed, strength, and skills, just waiting for that moment, the day the gates finally opened. He was thrown into a forest with nothing but a dull sword by his side. The tutorial began and his class was swordsman. The tutorial seemed easy enough, survive 1 hour there or find the exit. But the guide told him the truth, kill as many monsters as you can, and don't run. Hoyoung listened. Right when the tutorial started, an extremely cute unicorn raccoon appeared. He thought it was going to be easy, until the thing pulled out its claws and flew straight at him. Since Hoyoung had been training, he sliced the creature in half with a skill. He even managed to finish it off, but that attack burned way more MP than expected. He took out the rest of the raccoons without using any more skills. With so many creatures defeated, he already hit level 2. But a warning popped up saying his level had been reset. He completely froze with no idea why. Turns out it was a debuff from the sage's window. Having that overpowered guide makes him level up way slower than everyone else. Hoyoung was in shock for like 10 seconds, but when he noticed that his status points were still there, he figured out it wasn't a punishment, but actually a bug in the system. While everyone else needed XP to level up, he would stay at level 1 forever, putting all his points into sensitivity. Not exactly the standard swordsman build, but it was the most broken one at that moment. With that stat, he finds monsters way faster, and that means way more points. For the tutorial boss, a giant unicorn raccoon showed up, way faster and stronger than the normal ones.
I'm fast as fuck, boy!
Hoyoung waited for the perfect timing and launched a sword skill to slice it in half, clearing the tutorial. Out of nowhere, he got teleported to the tower lobby with 24 other people who also survived. The lobby was pure chaos, with everyone trying to go back home. That's when a rabbit in a suit named Sniffles introduced himself as the boss of the lower floors. Hoyoung immediately asked what they had to do to get out of there. Sniffles explained that the 25 players in the tower had to work as a team to climb the floors. The entire world had been pulled into towers just like this one, and even if they reached the top, there was no guarantee they would make it back home. But anyone who refuses to climb will definitely be killed. Sniffles then made a crazy request, asking if anyone there would be willing to kill him so he could go back to his home. Everyone was confused at first, but some guy stepped out of the crowd acting all confident, ready to help. On his first attack, the rabbit that seemed cute hit back with a punch, so insane it ripped the guy's head clean off. Sniffles' cute bunny skin transformed into something like a jacked kangaroo. Everyone around stood there in disbelief. The guide sent Hoyoung a warning, help Sniffles get back home. The thing is, our main character was also scared out of his mind. Since he didn't have much of a choice, Hoyoung activated a skill from the sage's window, and by looking at Sniffles, he was able to see the creature's real stats, and one detail caught his attention big time. Then he raises his hand and says he'll do it. The guide was telling the truth. Sniffles looks at him and points out that he's still only level 1. The protagonist answers that levels don't matter when you're trying to do the right thing. Sniffles agrees with a cruel grin. He spreads his arms, ready for the finishing blow, and tells the protagonist to send him home. The blonde girl quickly tries to stop him. This is way too dangerous. They just saw another person die. Others join in, saying it's reckless for a level 1 player to challenge a level 55 monster. But the protagonist tells them to relax. He has a plan. The blonde girl looks completely confused. He just says they're about to see something interesting. Then he draws his sword. At once, Sniffles turns into that beast form again and charges. His fist is about to hit the protagonist, when one strange detail clicks in the protagonist's mind. There are 25 people in the lobby, but Sniffles said, "You 24 players have been placed here." That number wasn't random. Showing off level 55 and making everyone fear death was all part of the act. Sniffles' arm passes straight through the protagonist's head, and everyone stares in shock. But the count was never wrong to begin with. The protagonist slips to Sniffles' side and strikes him. Then the dead man's body starts glowing, and a system message appears. Hologram created by Sniffles. After that, it fades away. Sniffles begins glowing too, and praises the protagonist for figuring it out. His real status window appears, showing that the beast form was just a hologram that breaks the moment it's hit. With his last words, Sniffles says, "May luck favor the brave," and then he disappears completely. The protagonist turns and sees a blue orb drop to the floor, rolling toward the group with the words "stat point" above it. Relieved, people start asking if it was all fake. while the protagonist picks up the orb. One of them asks how he figured it out. He can't say a hidden system tipped him off, so he makes up a solid excuse. When the dead man's blood splashed, it should have landed on the blonde girl, but it passed right through her. That's when he knew it was a trick. As he's holding the orb, someone walks up and says it would be a waste for him to use it. It's Seiyo, the redhead. He says the protagonist only got lucky, and if he'd noticed the trick first, he would have done the same. Since he's already level 4, he's confident facing someone who seems to be level 1. The protagonist asks what he means, and Seiyo says that if he's still level 1 after the tutorial, he probably spent the whole time running from raccoons instead of fighting. So since he'll probably die soon anyway, Seiyon says he should hand over the item for the good of humanity. The protagonist wonders what's wrong with this guy, ignores him, and crushes the orb right in front of him to claim the stat point. He has no habit of giving his stuff away. Seiyon steps closer with a crazy look and calls him selfish, trash, acting proud. The protagonist knows he's stronger than Seiyon, but people like this are better avoided. Still, he may not be able to avoid him for long. Just then, a sound rings out and a voice announces everyone's first gold rewards. Gold can be spent in the shop, and each person's amount depends on how many monsters they killed in the tutorial. The top reward is 7,400 gold. Xiaobei complains that if he'd known, he would have killed way more monsters. A man named Josong says he doesn't know who got first, but 7,400 is amazing. He got 1,500, while Xiaobei received 1,300. Of course, the one who earned the most is the protagonist. But there's no way he'll admit it. People are already jealous over one stat point, so that much gold would make things much worse. Then the system announces that they shout, and it offers 3 choices: items, skills, or attributes. The MC decides the smartest move is to get all his stats to 20 first, then work on his sword skill. At the very end, he spends a little gold on clothes. He can't stay in gym wear forever. At the same time, fake Ijiro is busy whining about how expensive skill upgrades are. Then the blonde girl comes over and asks the MC for help because she can tell he knows what he's doing. He eyes her carefully and asks if she really wants advice from a level 1 player. She says his level doesn't matter. What impressed her was how fearless he was with the caretaker. She's still only level 3, and her stats are pretty weak. Using the Sage status window, he checks her stats and asks how much gold she has. She says 800, and he confirms she's telling the truth, but still keeps his own secret. Instead, he asks if she likes working out. She wonders if walking counts, and that tells him her stamina is probably her worst stat. She agrees, so he tells her that's where she should invest. Buying items won't do much, especially since they won't last. Right after that advice, the same voice returns and announces the first floor mission is about to begin. They're told to form groups of 3, and anyone left out will be assigned randomly. They have 30 minutes to decide. The MC expected team missions eventually, but not this soon, so he knows he has to move fast. Zhusheng suggests everyone share their classes, since levels are already visible, and the group agrees. The blonde asks to team up with the MC, and he has no reason to turn down a healer, but nobody else wants in. Even with a healer, the others still see him as dead weight. A level 1 swordsman just isn't appealing. The level 4 players quickly group up, all feeling confident about the mission ahead. That leaves only the MC, the blonde, and one more person without a team. When the 30 minutes run out, then everyone is teleported to the mission area. The MC's group ends up being him, the blonde, and fake Ijiro. He immediately complains that he got stuck with what he sees as the 2 weakest people there, but there's no changing it. Working with him feels impossible, but they need to survive the first mission, so somehow they'll have to make it work. Their task is simple on paper: wipe out an entire kobold tribe within 12 hours. Fake Ijiro declares he'll clear it alone, and tells the other 2 not to get in his way. But the MC reminds him this is a team mission. He snaps back that the MC should be thankful he's carrying them instead of talking back. Rather than argue, the MC says he'll wait and see how well he really carries them. Fake Ijiro mocks him for acting tough when he'll just run away again, and the MC simply plays along, thanking him for the concern. There's no point fighting over it now. The blonde just worries the mission might go badly. Meanwhile, fake Ijiro marches ahead, annoyed by all the bugs. It's a forest, so of course there are bugs. This guy really doesn't think. The blonde asks if kobolds are strong, and the MC says they're definitely tougher than the unicorn raccoons, though a first floor mission should still be manageable. Still, he warns her not to relax. This is the Apocalypse Tower. Soon, they spot their first kobold. It's built like a tank, stronger looking than a lot of pro bodybuilders. The protagonist stares at it and realizes it really does look far stronger than the raccoons. From behind a tree, the blonde asks him what they should do. He says they should scout the area first and check if more kobolds are nearby, but fake Ijiro steps up. He mocks the MC for always hiding like a coward. Then he charges and slams a punch into the kobold's face, saying that's why the MC is still level 1. It's a solid hit, and for a second all 3 think the monster is finished. But once the dust clears, they see the kobold barely moved, its head only shifted a little. Its eyes glow red as it growls. The thing is tough, and fake Ijiro just gets more fired up. He starts throwing punch after punch, without caring about teamwork. The blonde begins casting healing on him, and the MC is just glad no other kobolds seem to be nearby. Fake Ejiro is strong, and with healing support, he might actually bring it down. Still, something feels off. His strength stat is high, but his attacks barely do anything. Maybe kobolds have some kind of weakness. Then a system window appears, telling him he's received a strategy guide. It says kobolds are passive monsters, and won't attack unless provoked. So Fake Ejiro picked this fight for no reason, but there is one upside. They needed to kill some kobolds anyway, if they wanted more information. Then he sees one detail that really catches his attention. Fake Ejiro uses his stone fist on a tree, yelling for the kobold to die already, and the tree crashes down onto another kobold. That one is level 6. Now the second kobold joins in and starts overwhelming Fake Ejiro. As he gets beaten around, he wonders why the MC still isn't helping. When he looks around, the MC is gone. Did he seriously run off and leave him? The kobold raises a final blow over Fake Ejiro, and the blonde rushes in, slashing at it with her sword, but then she trips and falls flat. The kobold turns toward her, lifting its club to finish her off, when something round lands on its back. A sword flashes through the fruit above it, and the MC appears, using his sword technique. The fruit's juice splashes over the kobold, starts bubbling, and blows the monster apart instantly. The system announces that the level 6 kobold has been defeated. The blonde looks at the protagonist with tears in her eyes. He thinks to himself that he knew those fruits were different. Bugs covered the other fruit in the forest, but they avoided these completely. He pulls out another fruit from his inventory, and the system confirms it. Kobolds are weak to poison. He's found the key to clearing the first floor mission. The MC asks if Izul is okay, and admits he didn't expect her to jump into the fight. If he'd been any later, things could have gone really bad. She thanks him for arriving just in time, and he's glad to hear it. Fake Ejiro, though, is furious, and demands to know where the MC went. Before the protagonist can answer, he cuts him off, calling him trash and selfish for hiding until the kobold was worn down, then stepping in for the kill. He says he already knew what kind of person the MC was when he kept that attribute point for himself, then acts like he's the mature one just because his level is higher. He still doesn't understand the situation at all, and that's probably going to get him in trouble again. Xiaobain is famous across the country for the power of his fists. A kobold really shouldn't have been that hard for him, and yet he's the one getting beaten up by them. Meanwhile, the other two are calmly using poison to kill the kobolds way more easily. Soikan stares at them, completely lost on how they're dropping kobolds so fast. Then a kobold smacks him straight in the head, and tears well up in his eyes. Two kobolds gang up on him and start stomping him into the ground. Crying now, he silently begs for help while curling up to protect himself. Then the stomping suddenly stops. He looks up and the kobolds explode. Just like that, Soikan's suffering ends. The protagonist reaches out a hand to Soikan and says he took a risk to save him. Seiyuan looks at him, then instantly bursts into grateful tears for being rescued. Right there, his whole attitude flips, and he begs the protagonist to become his boss. The MC and Fake Ejiro are both left stunned. At last, the mission is complete. In the last chapter, the protagonist figured out the kobold's weakness, which made clearing the first floor mission much easier, and because of that, he won Fake Ejiro's respect and admiration. Seiyuan is crushed, realizing the way he acted at the end went against everything he believed in. He actually bowed to the MC and begged to serve him, completely humiliating himself. He can't believe he called a level 2 player boss when he himself is already level 8. What's really wild is that, crazy as he is, he insists he keeps his word and won't take it back. The MC is so uncomfortable he even thinks he might need to go to the bathroom. At that point, no other team had made it back to the tower lobby yet. His group was basically first, and he figures it's because they discovered the kobold's weakness. The blonde says it wasn't luck at all. He noticed the poisonous fruit because he paid attention, but he shrugs it off and says the mission would have been much harder without her help, even though he feels like a total fraud for lying like that. Soon after, more portals open and the other participants start returning from their missions. The next teams back are Junsong's and Juno's, which probably means they also figured out the kobold's weakness. The MC hopes the rest come back safely too, but then the first signs of loss appear. One team returns with only 2 members. Then the voice over the speaker announces that all groups have returned from their missions. The blonde girl begs them to wait. Some people still haven't come back. 8 players never made it back from the mission. That number shocks the protagonist. He knew the mission would be hard, but not this deadly. If a third died here, how many had already died in the other towers? And how much more death would come before this was over? Then the voice says the first mission rewards will now be handed out. Any group that returned with all its members alive and the very first team to finish gets 1,000 gold. That means the MC's group earns 2,000 gold each, 1 reward for coming back first, and 1 for surviving together. It wasn't as much as the tutorial paid, but gold still mattered if he wanted to stay alive in the tower. The others immediately start asking who got back first. The protagonist realizes he can't hide it much longer. Xiangsong's group already saw them arrive first, so he starts to speak. Then Seiyun cuts in. He snorts and steps forward like he's the one in charge. The others can barely believe their group was first. Then the fake Ijiro starts picking a fight, asking if anyone has a problem with that. The protagonist remembers how things really went. Seyum must have forgotten the kobolds beat him around. Still, at least attention isn't on the MC. The real issue is that everyone still sees him as dead weight, like he got the 2,000 gold for free. People start calling him a leech and shameless. The muttering keeps going, even if he tries to ignore it. Isel even tries to tell them the MC was the one who changed the whole mission. He cuts her off and says it doesn't matter. They won't believe words. He'll have to prove it. Joonsong tells everyone to settle down and be glad they're alive. The people who survived have to keep going, and he's already one of the highest level players there. Juno joins in and tries to lift everyone's spirits. They have to keep pushing forward for the people who died too soon. The mood starts to lighten as people celebrate surviving. But then something strange happens. The torches in the lobby begin to change. Their blue flames turn red. Everyone notices right away, and panic spreads. The voice over the megaphone announces that Area C-2567's survival rate was far below average. Because of that, a penalty mission will begin. The death mission starts now. Each player must secretly choose one candidate. Whoever gets the most votes will be sent to the death mission. That's when everyone understands what that really means. Being picked is almost the same as dying, and if someone refuses to vote, their vote goes to themselves. They only have 5 minutes. Everyone tenses up. They all know someone has to be chosen, but no one wants to be the one to do it. ICL suggests a loophole. If everyone votes for themselves, it would be a tie, so maybe no one gets sent. But someone argues that could just make them all go instead. Time is running out. They have to pick someone. Then someone points at the protagonist. Juno looks at him, fully aware of how cruel that choice is. He walks over, apologizes, and says they have to vote for him. The protagonist says he saw this coming, but that doesn't make it feel any better. He doesn't want to die either. ICL tries again to push the self-vote plan, but the protagonist stops her. He says it won't work. There's no proof that strategy is safe. It could send all of them to the death mission, and by now their trust is already gone. As the seconds tick down, more votes pile onto him. Even Juno chooses him. The MC knows they're doing this because they think he's the easiest one to sacrifice. In this apocalypse, protecting the weak no longer means anything. ICL yells at them, calling them awful for forcing an innocent person into this. But nobody sees another way, and their true feelings start coming out. One person says a low-level player wouldn't survive long with them anyway. In the final second, the Ejiro wannabe gives the MC a fake apology, smiles, and votes for him too. It was another harsh reminder. This really was the apocalypse. The vote is over. The portal to the death mission will now open. The blonde girl covers her mouth in shock. Meanwhile, fake Ejiro starts laughing like a maniac. He says if the guy he called boss disappears, everything works out for him, and actually calls himself a genius. The sacrifice has been chosen, and the altar is ready. The MC walks past the group. Some look guilty, others relieved, but no one can meet his eyes. But what waits for him isn't death. A strategy guide window pops up. Joining the death mission is recommended. His odds of clearing it are very high, and the reward will be worth it. Back in the lobby, everyone feels guilty for sending the protagonist to die. Ejivol turns to Sehyon and quietly asks if he's okay. Joonsong walks over with a sad look. He says the MC was dependable during the first mission, even in that short time, and it's cruel to lose him like this. Everyone is basically acting like they're typing F in the chat. Then the Yojiro wannabe says he doesn't care. The guy deserved it. Joonsong immediately asks what he means. The fake Yujio says the MC was clearly low level and did nothing but wait for the right moment to steal the reward while he carried the group. Isel fires back that he's wrong. The protagonist is the reason they cleared the mission at all. Yujio snaps at her, saying the MC just got lucky and only stole his kill. She reminds him that the MC saved him when the kobolds were beating him to death. That makes Yujio pause. He starts wondering how the MC pulled that off. Could he be hiding his true level? Still, there's no way he survived. Right? Joonsung says he hopes the MC really is as special as Isel says. Because if he is, then maybe he'll come back alive. Isel remembers him saying he'd have to prove his strength. Wiping away tears, she says she believes in him and knows he'll return safely. Joonsung agrees with a small smile. Still, this guy gives off future villain energy. Meanwhile, the MC reaches the same kobold village from before, when he came here with Isel and Sem, but now it feels empty and unsettling. Even so, he's glad he got this mission. He was ready to vote for himself anyway. The others just did it for him first. Still, when he gets back, he plans to have a private talk with the Ejiro wannabe. The guy voted against him for no reason when the result was already decided. Then the system announces that the kobold tribe's hunting unit has returned, and the death mission begins. To clear it, he has to defeat the enraged kobold hunters and their chief. The chief is level 12, so this should be a real test. The system also tells him they're weak to poison. So the protagonist crushes one of the poisonous fruits in his hand, coats his sword with the toxin, and gets ready to kill them. A level 12 boss, backed by smaller monsters, would terrify most people, but not him. He waits for the first kobold to thrust its spear, slips past the attack, and cuts down the 3 hunters rushing him in one move. Now only the chief is left. The MC wants to see how hard this death mission really is. At least the tribe chief looks a lot more intimidating than the normal kobolds. The MC charges in with a full power strike, and the chief blocks it by crossing both swords. Right away, the protagonist realizes this one is different. It has skills of its own. Then the monster jumps back, turns, and starts running. The protagonist is stunned that the chief is fleeing, so he chases after it. He slashes the monster's back, and the poison starts wearing it down. For a second it feels like this mission is already over. The fight almost seems too easy, which is fine for the MC, even if he looks annoyed. Is this the start of a new Saitama, beating everything with zero effort? He swings again, but this time the sound is different. His blade doesn't cut through. The chief lifts its head. The protagonist looks up too and sees the moon has turned red. One of the chief's eyes starts to glow. Then a brutal strike tears through the protagonist's shoulder, so fast he doesn't even notice he's been hit. Back in the tower lobby, the fake Yogiro is grinning. He boasts that he can carry everyone through the rest of the tower, so they should listen to him, but nobody is paying attention. He keeps talking, saying it's called the death mission for a reason, so praying for someone already dead is pointless. He'd have a point if he were right. The blonde girl snaps at him to stop. Even in a world like this, she says, people should still have some basic decency. Yahello asks how he'll look the MC in the eyes if he comes back. He says he won't, because the MC is already dead. Their argument keeps going until the portal opens again. Everyone turns and the MC is back. Jinsong looks stunned, while Junho is honestly happy to see him alive. The protagonist steps out with his chest ripped open. With a smile, he says, "I'm back. And yeah, now everyone wants to know what happened before he returned." A guide window pops up and warns him. The kobold chief's eyes turning red means its stats jump hard, so he has to stay sharp. By then, the protagonist had already taken a hit to the chest and was bleeding badly. Blood even came out of his mouth. The wound was serious. His HP had dropped below half, and he was losing blood fast. The poison was working, but not fast enough. If he wanted to win, he needed one more clean hit. The kobold rushes him at top speed, with a terrifying force like a raging bull. It slashes at him, but he slips away at the last second. The blow is so strong it shatters the tree behind him. That's when he figures it out. A sword can't always cut through something tough, but it can still punch through it like a nail. He'd only been thinking about slicing, when the blade could do more than that. To land the hit, he had to use the chief's own speed against it. The chief jumps in with enough power to crack the ground as it charges him. It comes down with both swords aimed straight at his head, and the MC answers with a thrust that bursts through the kobold's shoulder and finally brings it down. The system then announces a new skill, thrust. Just like that, he clears the death mission. The blonde girl runs over to him, happy beyond belief, saying she knew he'd make it. But then someone shoves her aside, sending her rolling back into the wall. When he turns to check what happened, the fake Ejiro is already hugging him. Totally worked up, he yells that he always believed in him, and calls him boss again. That's one loyal friend right there. A death mission could never kill the great Hoyoung, the fake Ejiro says. The MC seriously wants to punch him, but before he can, a few people come over and ask if he really cleared it. Some low-level players say they're glad he's alive, but if he beat the mission alone, shouldn't he have gotten a ton of experience? So why is his level still so low? The whispers start up again, and some even guess the whole mission was just another illusion like that rabbit before. He thought he'd be used to this by now, but people always want the weak to stay weak, and that brings back an old memory. He remembers holding a report card packed with top scores, while other kids claimed he must have cheated to rank first. To them, an orphan with no money for a tutor could never take first place. It's like the world won't even let the lowly struggle upward. Now they're saying he probably just hid until the mission timer ran out. They were always ready to step on the weak to climb higher. He already knew that. That kind of bias doesn't vanish in a day, but he also knows what he has to do. Then the blonde girl speaks up and asks why they keep doubting Hoyoung. Wasn't surviving the death mission enough proof that he's capable? Then the fake Ejiro steps in and starts shouting that she's right. This should be a celebration, not a pile-on. The guy came back alive, so why ruin it? He says all that while striking some over-the-top pose, making it impossible to take him seriously. Still, the protagonist is thankful that some people are on his side. They need everyone working together to reach the top of the tower, so he has to win the group over somehow. He gets everyone's attention and says there's something he wants to show them. Then he pulls out the kobold chief's sword, and everyone is stunned. It's the indomitable sword, and it boosts attack by 15%. Jing Song walks up, surprised he gathered the poisoned apples earlier, and says Hoyoung really is as impressive as Soyoung claimed. The MC brushes it off as luck, but Jing Song says that doesn't matter. Experience aside, this weapon could be vital for everyone's survival in the tower. The protagonist gives a crooked smile and reminds them they're forgetting one thing. They all voted for him to die. Junho bites his lip and admits he's right. He tries to explain that they had no choice, but in the end they were selfish and just relieved it wasn't them. Even knowing the lowest level person would be the easiest target, Junho still voted for Hoyoung so he could live. He bows, apologizes, and through tears says he's just glad MC came back alive. So is the protagonist about to use that moment to take Junho's head off? Another player says this has gone too far, someone had to be picked, and since he came back with a rare item, they should move on. Junho asks if she really feels no guilt at all, but she snaps back that he was the first one to vote for Hoyoung. The MC cuts into the fight and says he didn't bring it up to shame them, he brought it up so it won't happen again. During the death mission vote, they should have realized the tower was turning them against each other. That's the tower's goal, make them distrust one another, start fighting, and tear themselves apart for its amusement. His survival gives them a chance, because it proves they can resist the tower's plan if they choose right. Zhang Bao asks if he has a way to do that, and Hoyoung says they need to keep climbing while searching for a way for everyone to survive. If they reach the top, maybe they can return to their old lives. The blonde girl says the only way to reach that goal is by working together. Zhang Bao, full of emotion, says Hoyoung is basically a saint for forgiving the people who tried to kill him. He admits he should never have judged him by his level. But right when this hopeful moment starts building, guess who shows up to ruin it? That's right, Sniffles is back, and he says it's too bad the next mission is a survival game. The protagonist instantly understands what that means, and it's exactly what it sounds like. On the second floor, all 16 players will face each other in a battle royale. Sniffles quickly tells them not to panic, saying it won't be quite that brutal at first. Then he explains the rules. The mission includes 16 players and 16 doppelgangers, making 32 total participants. To clear it, they only need to kill all the doppelgangers. Sounds easy enough, right? Not really, because the copies have the same stats and even the same memories as the originals, so spotting them won't be simple. Then comes the third and most important rule. Killing a doppelganger gives no reward, but if someone kills another player, they get skill points and gold. So the second floor is a huge temptation, and everyone is furious, because Sniffles is basically pushing them to kill one another. Sniffles snaps his fingers and says that if nobody dies within 30 minutes, everyone will be sent back to the lobby to face a catastrophe. Right then, lightning crashes down and a portal opens. A giant hand comes out of it, followed by a monster so high level nobody can even read it. And that's where the chapter ends. So what do you think Hoyoung is going to do here? In the last chapter, everyone in the tower learned they were in serious trouble if they didn't clear the second floor mission the caretaker's way. The rules are simple, 16 players, and 16 copies of them that look the same and share their traits and memories. The goal is to kill the 16 doppelgangers, but that gives no reward. Killing real players does, and if no one dies within 30 minutes, everyone gets sent back to the lobby to face the giant monster Sniffles summoned. The MC dodges the monster's attack, and even manages to save the blonde girl and Junko, but the monster is already swinging again at all three of them. Everyone is stunned by how powerful it is. They're so terrified, all they can do is shake and scream. Then the monster turns and goes after another player. Hoyoung reacts fast, grabs the person, and pulls him out of the monster's range. He looks at Sniffles and demands to know why the second floor mission hasn't even started, yet this catastrophe is already attacking. But Sniffles is cowering in fear like everyone else. MC even wonders if this is like the last time, maybe it's just another illusion that can't really hurt anyone. Then the monster smashes 3 players at once, proving this is very real. The stronger fighters attack back. Zhang Bao uses his skill while the fake Ijiro hurls rocks with all his strength. It doesn't matter, none of it does any damage to the monster. So is Sniffles really trying to wipe everyone out before the mission even begins? The blonde girl is nearly out of mana from healing so many people. At least nobody has died yet, but it's only a matter of time before she runs dry. Another full power attack comes in, and the protagonist yells for everyone to move. He's about to try the same move he used on the kobold chief. Junho panics and tries to pull him away, but Hoyoung won't budge. If he can't stop this thing, then nobody can, and they're all dead anyway. He gathers all his strength into the tip of his sword, takes aim and activates sword technique level 2, blowing the monster apart in a single strike. Everyone cheers as the monster vanishes, and they start yelling his name, but he just stares at his sword, shocked by what he did. Was the sword really that strong? That strike felt nothing like the one he used on the kobold chief. Then a system message pops up. It says he used power way beyond his limit and will pass out from exhaustion for 3 minutes. The protagonist's vision starts going dark and he drops to the floor, blacking out completely. When he wakes up, people are shouting and asking if he's okay. The system says the exhaustion state has ended. He's still on the ground, trying to figure out what happened. Juno looks at him with tears in his eyes and says Hoyoung is amazing, strong, humble, and even his fainting scene was cool. This guy really loves drama. MC asks what happened and where the monster went. Juno glances back, and Sniffles says he sent it away with his usual cute act. It was only a warning of what would happen if they broke the second mission's rules. He says that matches what he thought. Sniffles asks if that little warning wasn't enough. They still seem pretty lively for people who almost died. Walking up to the group, Sniffles says that since someone has to die every 30 minutes, the person beside them could turn on them at any time. Everyone freezes in shock, and Sniffles just winks before opening a portal and leaving. Hoyoung can't believe Sniffles could say that so casually and feel nothing. Juno asks how they're supposed to tell who the doppelgangers are. What if they end up killing each other? One player says they need a plan. Maybe they could use secret marks, but someone quickly reminds him the copies share their memories too. As everyone struggles to come up with something, the protagonist cuts in and says he already knows what to do. He says only he will take action, though the manhwa doesn't explain it yet. Still, it's easy to guess what he means. That shocks the group, and whispers spread again, but Hoyoung keeps going. Everyone should head to the highest point on the second floor and stay there. If anyone besides him starts attacking, they all need to jump that person together, because it'll be a copy. A muscular level 8 guy asks if that's really the plan. He's a former Special Forces soldier and knows survival well. Then a woman speaks up. She admits MC is strong for his level, but asks why they should trust such a reckless idea. She's the same one who tried to throw Juno under the bus before, so she's clearly trouble. Hoyoung points back to what Sniffles said when he explained the mission. Killing a doppelganger gives nothing, but killing another player earns attribute points and gold. So even if the mission says they're supposed to kill the copies, the tower really wants the players to start killing each other for rewards. He says he won't let the tower play him, and his plan is the best way to stop that. This woman seriously needs to be quiet. She asks how this plan is best, and Jangsong steps forward to say he agrees. It's the safest way to keep needless deaths down. Still, if Hoyoung wants to carry all of this alone, then he must have some way to tell the copies apart. The protagonist smiles and says he does. The second floor mission finally starts. At least one death must happen every 30 minutes until all 16 doppelgangers are dead. The system shows 16 players and 16 copies. Then we cut to fake Yu Goro, whining that all he can do is head for the highest point. He clearly doesn't like following Hoyoung's orders. A second later, he hears footsteps and ducks behind a tree. MC finds him right away and points out that his shoulders are way too wide for that tree to hide him. Yugoro instantly switches up, calls him boss, and acts relieved to see him. He starts to say he thought the protagonist might be a doppelganger, but the protagonist cuts him off by cutting him in half. One strike is all it takes. Hoyoung is insanely strong to split a guy that big so easily. The next chapter briefly goes back over MC's plan. He decided he'd be the only one killing in this mission. Since doppelgangers give no reward and only he can identify them, the job falls to him. Then we see him checking the Sage's system window, and he figures out why he can spot the copies so easily. Anyone with high perception can earn a reward called Superior Instinct. It's perfect for telling real people from doppelgangers. Hoyoung had actually been nervous about sounding so sure in front of everyone, so finding this clue came at the perfect time. The only thing he didn't know was how much perception he needed, so he kept comparing different point totals. When his perception hits 50, the system says he's the first to reach that number and grants him Superior Instinct. He looks at his hand and sees a blue glow. All 5 of his senses jump way up. Now he can sense people nearby and tell each one apart. It costs half his gold, but he gets the skill. For this mission, it's exactly what he needs. To him, it's like seeing the world through an extra filter. While Hoyoung is still thinking about the new skill, he hears someone muttering. He sharpens his vision and spots fake Ijiro coming closer. The guy is grumbling about having to climb to the highest point. That's when it becomes clear this was a flashback. I honestly thought he killed the fake Ijiro by pure luck before. Hoyoung realizes that even from 500 yards away, he can hear and see him like he's standing right there. He almost laughs at the complaining, but then a nasty smell hits him, and he knows right away this isn't the real fake Ijiro. On top of that, the copy gives off a creepy aura. One doppelganger is down, so 15 remain, and within 30 minutes another death will have to happen. Standing over fake Ijiro's copy, the protagonist remembers how it kept pretending to be real even while dying, but that part doesn't matter now. What matters is that he can finally tell humans from copies, and the others just need to stick to his plan. Jangsong also helped a lot by getting everyone to trust Hoyoung enough to let him handle the mission alone. Now MC just hopes nothing goes wrong while the others are heading to the highest point. Then a system message appears. A player has died. The mission just started, and someone's already gone. Was it a doppelganger, or did a player kill another player? Who died? He tenses up, but he has no way to know who it was, so he takes off to hunt the other doppelgangers, and after killing one more, another player dies too. Hoyoung climbs a tree and wonders where the killer is. Then he spots 2 figures, one holding a sword, the other lying on the ground. Was this another murder? The protagonist rushes over and realizes the one standing is a doppelganger. He moves so fast the copy can't react and slashes across its chest. The system announces the doppelganger has been killed. 13 copies remain. Yugyang thought his own doppelganger might be the one behind the killings, but it turned out to be someone he never expected. At least that copy is dead now, before it can kill more people. The dead player was only level 4. MC is about to pay his respects when he notices something off. The doppelganger he killed had a long sword, but the player's wound wasn't from a blade, it was an arrow. Not far away, Jang Song is aiming his bow. Ho-young catches the movement and slips behind a tree. So the killer wasn't the doppelganger he just killed. It was someone else. Jeon-song calls out, asking who's there, and he realizes it's really him, not a copy. He also sees an arrow stuck in Jeon-song's back. His own doppelganger must have shot him. The protagonist starts walking over, but Jeon-song tells him to stop right there. He wants to believe it's really Ho-young, but he has no way to identify the copies. Jeon-song is sweating, bow still drawn, and tells him to keep his distance. MC explains that the one he just killed was a doppelganger, and asks if that doesn't prove who he is. Jang Song finally understands and lowers his bow. Since it really was him, Jang Song tries to warn him about his own doppelganger, but another arrow hits him in the back and he collapses unconscious. Ho-young rushes to him, and the next scene shows him carrying Jang Song. While the injured man apologizes, he says if he hadn't missed his shot, no one would have died, and the protagonist wouldn't have to carry this burden. Just thinking that something with his face was out there killing people made it even worse, but Ho-young tells him it's not his fault. They're all victims of the tower, so the only thing that matters now is surviving. Then someone calls MC's name, and when he turns he sees Isil and Junho coming toward them. They look relieved to find the two alive, and Isil offers to heal Jeon-song. She says she was terrified after seeing two players had already died, and Junho is just as stunned. As Isil comes closer to heal him, he steps in and warns Jeon-song. They're both doppelgangers. Their expressions change at once, and they rush Ho-young and Jeon-song without holding back. While the protagonist takes on Jeon-song's copy, Jeon-song chooses to fight Isil's copy himself. The fight was still going, and the protagonist couldn't figure out why the doppelgangers chose to face him head-on. That was especially weird for Isil's copy. She had her memories, so she should know how strong he really is. Right then, Isil's copy came at him from behind with a sword. He caught it in time and dodged. At the same moment, Jeon-ho dropped down with his blade, trying to crush him. The MC evaded again, and Jeon-ho's strike blasted a huge crater into the ground. As he came down from that dodge, an arrow from Jeon-song's copy nearly hit his neck. He avoided a direct hit, but it still scraped his cheek. The copy laughed that he almost had him. Jeon-song's doppelganger looked unbelievably awful. The chapter even warns that what's coming is brutal, and with 3 doppelgangers lined up in front of him, it was now 3 against 1. The counter still showed 14 players and 13 doppelgangers, even though 3 copies were right in front of him, and the timer for the next death was still ticking down. Meanwhile, Jeon-song stayed behind a tree, waiting for his chance. As a deep-sea fisherman, he knew how to use bait, and this time, the bait was himself, so he had been the real threat from the beginning. The MC hadn't realized he wasn't a copy, and now things were truly dangerous. He yanked the arrow out of his own back and said he had slipped up in the way he talked because he got too excited. Then he asked how the MC felt right now, asking if the MC felt betrayed, pushed away, or maybe furious. And yes, Jeon-song was the real one after all. He was shaking with excitement. But that stopped when the protagonist said he'd been waiting for Jeon-song to show his true side, though it was even worse than expected. Jeon-song replies that it almost sounds like the MC expected to be betrayed. The protagonist says his eyes can read status windows, and he already saw that Jeon-song had boosted his stats a lot. Jeon-song calls him fascinating. Maybe the tower favors him, he says, admitting he's a little jealous. The protagonist asks why he's doing this. Were the rewards really worth killing other people for? Jeon-song says he doesn't need a reason. In this new world, killing people feels rewarding, so why wouldn't he do it? Then Jeon-song fires an arrow at him. The MC remembers the mask Jeon-song showed before, and how he thought Jeon-song was just another victim trapped in the tower. The arrow reaches him, but he dodges it easily, and rushes Jeon-song with full force. Jeon-song had only been waiting for the right time to let his urges loose. He was a serial killer. The MC leaps past fake Jeon-ho's attack, and lands in the tree branches. Another arrow flies at him, and he slices it in half, but a second one is already right in front of his face. Jeon-song was insanely fast. The protagonist twists in midair, and the arrow blows a massive hole through the tree behind him. Jeon-song didn't just have great aim, he also had the group's best swordsman and healer fighting for him, even if they were only copies. He was strong, fought from long range, and had the perfect team set up for him. The protagonist says he doesn't know how Jeon-song took control of the copies, but he'd clearly prepared for this. Jeon-song says that's normal when you're going after a big catch, and the protagonist is hard to reel in. Still, that only makes it more fun for him. As he licks the arrow tip, Jeon-song jokes that maybe it's poisoned and he forgot. Then he says the more the MC struggles, the more it'll hurt when he dies. He sets an arrow on the bow, and 2 more appear through a skill. Then he orders the doppelgangers to attack the protagonist. All 3 move at once. The protagonist activates superior instinct, and a blue field spreads across the ground. His enemies were a perfectly balanced team. Asura was level 7, Junho level 8, while the protagonist was only level 2, but his stats were far higher. He instantly cuts all 3 arrows in half, and at the same time Junho gets hit point blank in the chest. When Isoro sees that, she lifts her hand to heal Junho, but in that instant, her hand is sliced off. The protagonist is already beneath her, and before she can process it, he drives his sword into her stomach and kills her. His strength was greater than the other 3 combined. That made 2 doppelgangers down, with 11 left. He started walking toward Janesong, whose face had gone pale. He looked so scared he might have lost control of himself. That shaky laugh made it clear he knew he was about to die. When the truth finally hit him, Junsong dropped to his knees, begging for mercy with a pitiful twisted face. He cried and hinted that the rewards had blinded him. Lowering himself even more, Junsong begged to be forgiven, saying the protagonist's power made him want to become just as strong, but he went too far. If he had meant it, maybe forgiveness would have been possible, but he didn't, so there was none coming. Why? Because Junsong waited for the protagonist to get close, and the moment he was in range, he jumped up with an arrow and shouted for him to die, but he couldn't even finish the line. Before he understood what happened, his head was already falling away, and with a crazy smile, he realized the MC wasn't just some big fish. A player had died. Now only 13 players and 11 doppelgangers remained, and another death had to happen within 30 minutes. Blood dripped from the protagonist's sword, and he was shaken by having to kill a real person. Then the system announced that he had killed a player and could choose the path of the assassin. He had been given the chance to take over that path from the dead player. A strange aura wrapped around him, and the system said that if he accepted the assassin path, he'd gain bonus stats and the doppelganger's support, along with a huge reward if he cleared the mission. It suddenly felt like a betrayal game. Would the protagonist now turn on everyone who had doubted him? The aura around him then took the shape of a red and blue woman, holding out her hand. The system asked, "Will you follow the path of the assassin?" Then the protagonist understood what had happened, and how Junsong had been able to command the doppelgangers. The system listed the rewards for becoming an assassin: legendary gear, legendary skills, fast stat growth, and assassin-only traits. The woman kept her hand out in front of him. He was stunned by how absurdly good the rewards were. Killing doppelgangers had already felt bad, but he did it without hesitation because they weren't human. This path was different. If he accepted it, he'd have to hunt players, and he was sure someone else would take Junsong's place if they hadn't already. The protagonist raises his hand, ready to decide on the assassin's path, but in the end, he turns it down. He refuses to become a serial killer like Junsong. But when he gets back to the meeting point, fake Eshiro, the real fake one this time, greets him sweetly and asks why he took so long. And for a second, the protagonist thinks maybe the serial killer path doesn't sound so bad. The MC says he's glad everyone made it, and thanks them for following his instructions, even without knowing the full reason. Both the real players and the copies were there, all panicking and unsure what to do, so they ask if he really can tell the doppelgangers apart. He says yes, and that he'll start right away. Then his doppelganger shows up and repeats the exact same thing he told the group. Everyone tenses up. Now there are 2 MCs and nobody knows which one to trust. They ask if he expected this too. This was a huge headache, but there were already clear differences. The copy was clean, while the real protagonist had just fought 3 doppelgangers and 1 player. He had wanted to take down his copy first, as part of the plan, but the doppelganger must have seen that coming and stayed away. On top of that, Junsong had ruined everything. Now the real showdown between the 2 protagonists was about to start. One of the others asks him to explain what happened, if he really dealt with the doppelgangers that were already killed, and who those dead doppelgangers were. The scoreboard already showed 8 dead 3 players and 5 doppelgangers. If he could name the dead doppelgangers, the survivors from those pairs would be confirmed as real players. That would also help prove he's the real Hoyoung too. The problem was that the moment he listed the dead, his copy repeated the same names in the exact same order. Everyone was stunned by how perfect the mimicry was, but the protagonist had already expected that. Proving he was the real Hoyoung wasn't going to be easy. Then the doppelganger points out that Isael and fake Ijiro had teamed up in the first mission and built trust, so how likely was it that he had already beaten the doppelgangers from his own first group? One of the others asks if that was all part of a plan to make things easier for him, and the annoying woman says that was way too obvious. MC's copy keeps pressing the point. MC called Jensong a fake, even though Jensong had been with them, so that must mean he killed the real one. Then the copy plays on their feelings, saying Jensong was kind, well-known, and the highest level player there. He reminds them Jensong always led the group and kept people going, so it's hard to believe he was really dead. And if Hoyoung were real, would they really trust someone who admitted to murder? The copy was making a strong case, and turning this around wouldn't be easy. Little by little, the group starts siding with the copy and doubting him. The fake still didn't know how the real Jonsong died, but with everyone leaning his way, he was already pleased. He finishes by claiming he exposed himself early to win everyone's trust, so the protagonist must be the doppelganger. That does it. People pull out their weapons and decide to kill Hoyoung first, then deal with the rest of the fakes. Xiaoyuan and Isol push back, asking if that means they think they're fakes too. They insist no one should choose a side without hearing both stories, and Junho agrees they need to be careful, but the others argue they're running out of time. If nobody dies before the 30 minutes end, they'll face the disaster waiting for them. MC had to admit his copy was smart. In a way, he was impressed with himself, but that wasn't important right now. He steps forward and says the other him is right. He really did kill Jang Song. The copy mocks him, asking if he's giving up already, then calls him a doppelganger. But Hoyoung knows one thing the copy doesn't. As he moves past him and draws his sword, he makes his final play. He strikes down Jun Song's double. Then the protagonist reveals the truth. The real Jun Song was a traitor. He was the one killing players. The hit lands cleanly on Jun Song's fake and he drops. The others cry out Jun Song's name in shock. MC's copy demands to know what he's doing, already reaching for his sword. MC had taken the risk because there was no other choice. Jun Song tells him to stop, and asks what he means by calling Jun Song a traitor. In his head, Junho starts connecting the pieces. If that logic is right, then the real protagonist was the one who attacked Jun Song while everyone was together. Back then, the players had the upper hand because a doppelganger's identity is exposed when it kills a player, so the fakes couldn't attack carelessly. Hoyoung only needed to kill one fake to prove who he was, but if Jun Song was a traitor, then everything changes. Back in the present, Junho asks if Jun Song really killed someone. MC says yes. He explains that Jun Song had been hiding his real nature the whole time, a serial killer acting like a good guy until he got the chance to show himself. Jun Song snaps, asking how he dares talk about Jun Song like that. She says Jun Song saved her in the first mission, when a kobold almost killed her. Furious, Jun Xing draws her sword and rushes at Hoyoung, screaming that she'll never forgive him. But her rage ends in an instant when something strikes her in the back. It's an arrow from Jun Song. She can only ask why, before collapsing dead. That left 12 players and 11 doppelgangers. Hoyoung raises his sword, shocked that fake Jun Song can still move after taking that hit. Then he realizes his mistake. After his strike, the doppelganger count hadn't gone down. Fake Jun Song starts laughing like a madman, saying this is the face he wanted to see on everyone. Then something hits him from behind too, and this time he dies. The one standing there is the former soldier who asked about his plan, before the second floor mission. He apologizes for doubting Hoyoung, and asks what they need to do next. Now that fake Jun Song is dead, everyone understands the protagonist is the real one. They ready their weapons, and ask him to lead them too. Everything had changed. Before they doubted him and his skill. Now he had exactly what he needed. But just as he's about to start giving orders, his own copy leaps at him with a sword. Hoyoung blocks the attack, and the doppelganger yells that now the real fight begins. MC tells everyone to spend their gold and raise their stats. If they do, the doppelgangers won't be able to keep up, because the players will be much stronger than they were yesterday. He explains that each copy's stats were based on the player's condition when they entered the mission. So once the players boosted themselves mid-battle, they surpassed their copies and cleared the mission without losing anyone else. Even so, the mood stays heavy. The ex-soldier says everyone could have survived, if not for that bastard Jun Song. The betrayal hit him hard, especially since they were in the same group during the first mission. Hoyoung feels down too. He had wanted to clear this mission with no deaths, but the other towers were probably doing far worse. Most people didn't have a strategy guide like he did, and there were likely more killers like Jun Song out there. From here on, the battles would only get worse. Maybe the towers would even start fighting each other. He knows he's still weak, but there has to be a reason he was given this guide. As long as people are willing to trust him, he'll keep trying to save everyone. The ex-soldier walks over to him, thanks him for helping them survive, and Hoyoung thanks him back for trusting his plan. The man says the protagonist must have some special skill tied to his level, because he's far too strong for level 2. MC sees how sharp and careful Soyeon is, and realizes he'll be a big help from now on. Soyeon keeps talking, apologizing for misjudging him, and soon the others do the same. While everyone is saying sorry, Soyeon bursts out laughing and says they should have trusted him from the start, just like he did. Soyeon quickly argues she was the first to see how amazing he was, and Junho gets emotional and apologizes again. Then Soyeon says it may not mean much coming from them, but he thinks the best choice is to make MC their leader. He is caught off guard, but he smiles and accepts. That's where the chapter ends. In a post-credit style moment, the story shows how the second floor mission really finished. With 5 minutes left, they were still searching for the last doppelganger, and couldn't find it anywhere. Hoyoung stops by a bush and drives his sword into it, killing the final fake, who had been hiding there the whole time. The next chapter opens with the tower announcing it's time to hand out rewards for clearing the mission. Everyone gets some gold, usually between 500 and 700, but Sejong earns 2,000 gold, and gets so excited he strikes a pose and calls himself the 2000 gold man. Still, nobody came close to Hoyoung's reward. He gets a huge 12,500 gold. He also raises his shop rank by passing 10,000 gold, which means he can now buy rarer, even unique items. In the end, he spends 5,000 gold to improve his sword skill, even though using its full power still makes him pass out. The cost was worth it for how strong the technique was. He saves the rest for later and sends 1,200 gold to Isolol. She asks why, but he just tells her to accept it. Without her, those last 2 missions would have been much harder. She helped everyone survive and made it possible to celebrate clearing the mission. And even with the tower trying to kill them, her wish to save everyone keeps the group moving forward. Yahello blushes after hearing that she really seems to have fallen for him now. Holding back tears, she says she'll become even stronger. Hoyoung also sends 200 gold to Sejong and tells him to stop messing with him. Sejong calls out to the protagonist, and when MC turns, Sejong is making that same cute face again, even asking to be ordered around. Hoyoung grabs his sword, and for a second it looks like he might actually cut Sejong down for that wild stunt, but he's really just getting ready for the 3rd floor mission. The new area is dry and rocky, a big change from the forest before. This mission is a siege battle. So yes, real PvP between towers is finally about to start. His side is the attacking force. They have 24 hours to capture the castle and take the altar, and if they fail, the tower won't even tell them what happens next. The protagonist and the others receive an item called a return stone, a temporary item only for the 3rd floor mission. Everyone is already uneasy about killing more people, and now they're also wondering what the return stones are. He calls for Sejong, who answers right away, excited as ever. MC asks if he really meant it when he said he'd do anything he was told, and then he swings his sword at Sejong. The scene cuts, and Sejong, still acting as fake Ijiro, is now heading up the mountain path. He complains that Hoyoung could have just told him with words that he wouldn't die in this mission. Then the system explains the return stones. If someone dies during the mission, they return to their starting point. He had offered him 100 gold to scout the place they needed to invade. Sejong reaches the front of the palace and starts yelling that he could wipe out the whole place by himself. Then he punches the gate, and the system shows its durability dropping to 81. He's ridiculously strong. On the second hit, the gate's durability falls to 62, then 40 on the third, 19 on the fourth, and with the 5th punch, Sejong smashes the gate completely. The system announces that the castle entrance has been opened. It also says the gate will regenerate in 2 seconds. But Sejong is already through and running up the stairs. Once inside, he quickly checks out the defenders. 2 are on the walls, and around 10 more are gathered by the altar. Back with the group, Hoyoung tells Sejong not to kill anyone, or they'll learn what the return stones do. Seeing everyone shake at the sight of him, Sejong starts feeling pretty good. Still, he has to hold back, and the moment he rushes the defenders, something slams straight into his face. He's left stunned, bleeding hard, and drops to his knees. Through blurry eyes, he spots someone holding a weapon, then hears another shot. Hoyoung is stunned to hear the enemy has a weapon that fires magical bullets strong enough to cause serious damage. After Sejong returns, he shares everything he learned, and the protagonist starts piecing it together. Weapons aren't supposed to be available yet, but one did unlock in MC's shop earlier. Maybe he missed it, or maybe he's hiding that fact, but the others clearly don't have access to one. Not even Sejong, a former soldier, uses a gun. That means the shooter likely took the assassin path, making this fight way tougher. Sejong grabs Hoyoung's arm and tells him not to worry. She'll help him. She says it while blushing, making her feelings pretty obvious. The rest of the team fires up too and promises to back him up. Hoyoung draws his sword and starts laying out the plan. Meanwhile, someone is kneeling on the ground, sweating. Another person stands over them with a yawn, while everyone else trembles with their backs turned, and that's where the chapter ends. The next chapter opens with him saying one of his biggest gains from the 2nd floor was superior instinct. It made him faster and sharper than the other scions. He activates it and spots the enemies on the castle wall. Noticing both are level 8, Sejong steps up and starts shouting at them again. Sejong worries that might expose the return stone, but Hoyoung says the enemy will probably think it's just Sejong's skill. The defenders raise their bows at Sejong, and the protagonist bursts forward at crazy speed. Before the arrows can reach Sejong, they're already sliced apart by Hoyoung. He steps on Sejong's shoulder, vaults up the wall, and cuts down both enemies in one move. They only get one shot at this mission. If they fail to take the castle, the other side will learn the truth about the return stones, so they have to win no matter what. As everyone rushes the castle, MC is already inside. Xiaoyun warns the door would normally take 5 hits to break, so anyone too slow will be stuck outside. Then Xiaoyun uses his level 2 skill and blows the door apart in one hit, but the recoil is so bad that Ishao has to heal him to wake him back up. Xiaoyun looks down at the chaos below as his team pushes in, while one archer mutters that letting them live was a mistake, especially with that scary woman there. The enemy line is waiting, and the armed woman has her gun aimed at his group. She's the one who really destroyed the door, and Seyun dropped after taking another shot to the face. When Hoyun checks her status, it's terrifying. Level 13, level 3 sniper skills, and an ability called Assassin's Eye. She chose the path the protagonist refused, and at level 13 it makes you wonder how many people she killed on the 2nd floor. She looks up and fires at MC without a second thought. The bullet tears into his shoulder. He ducks behind a wall and drinks a healing potion. One thing is clear, She's ruthless and doesn't hesitate at all. Good thing Hoyoung prepared ahead of time because he's wearing leather armor under his shirt. That helps him survive the hit. Each bullet costs her 10 mana, and she has 150 total. If her shop is at the same rank as his, she shouldn't have mana recovery items yet. That leaves her with only 13 shots. He jumps deeper into the castle, and his whole team follows. Everyone charges ahead, while the woman keeps firing at them. Then it cuts to one of the others, asking how they're supposed to take the altar with a gun aimed at them. Si-Chang, the ex-soldier, says they should run in zigzags to make the shots harder. Hoyoung says that if those bullets hit hard enough to nearly kill fake Ajiro, they must have limits. If they're magic bullets, the limit is her mana. Juno adds that it depends on how much mana she has. The protagonist agrees, they just need to endure the shots. Juno, the first one who got hit, gets back up wearing the same kind of armor as MC. After that he gets healed, and the woman opens fire again, as the group keeps advancing. From the rear, Isol keeps healing everyone she can. The woman kicks the man at her feet and orders the rest to charge and kill Hoyoung's team. They rush in, scared but desperate. This is the key moment. If they get dragged into a full fight here, people will fall, so they have to reach the altar fast. One enemy brings a sword down at him, but he slips past it easily. Another comes at him from behind, and Hoyoung blocks with his sword, then knocks the attacker out with the hilt to the neck. Right then, a bullet heads for his head, but Junho jumps in and blocks it with his sword. The impact sends Junho's blade flying, and the woman sounds surprised that he stopped her bullet. Then Junho tells Hoyoung to keep moving, only to get shot in the temple and blasted backward. The protagonist is horrified as people around him keep getting shot down. Even with Isol healing from the back, she can't save everyone at once. He knows nobody dies for real on this floor, but he's still shaken by how coldly that woman keeps killing. She gives a small smile and says Hoyoung's group is pretty interesting. Furious, MC tightens his grip and calls up a blue aura, his level 3 sword technique. He surges forward, cutting through 3 people in one strike, and reaching the base of the altar. Then he leaps, just as the woman lines up another shot. His sword clashes with her magic bullet, sending a huge shockwave across the altar, as the chapter ends. Then Fakey Jero says the enemy team was no match for him, so they were finished. Now that Hoyoung has reached the altar, there's no reason to hold back anymore. Using Stone Fist on the ground, he sends 2 enemies flying while a huge brawl breaks out around them. In the middle of it all, he and the gunwoman just face each other with their weapons ready. She asks who he is, and how someone at only level 2 can fight like this. Hoyoung shoots back that it's just as strange for someone to already be level 13. She ignores the jab. Instead, the protagonist steps forward, and the altar begins to shine. The system says MC has started occupying it, but it's not that easy. They need 3 people to capture the altar, and he's only the first. Plus, he still has to drive her out of the area. The woman pulls the trigger, and Hoyoung dodges the shot. Knowing he has to remove her fast, he swings straight at her face. She uses the gun to knock his blade aside, so he answers with a rapid barrage of strikes. She tries firing back, but he keeps defending against the bullets. Then he puts everything into one high-speed slash, but she reads it and jumps clear. While flipping in the air, she starts shooting at him, yet every bullet misses. That's when she realizes he's predicting her moves. The story briefly shifts to Juno, the swordsman, one of the strongest in Hoyoung's team, and once a table tennis prodigy. In a sport where the ball flies back and forth in an instant, top players learn to read the other person's stance and eyes to predict where it will go. Back then, Juno was known as a genius at prediction. That memory gave Hoyoung an idea. He pushes toward the woman, and she finally looks shaken by how he keeps dodging her shots. The protagonist swings a brutal horizontal slash at the assassin, with so much force that the stone pillar behind her gets cut in half and crashes down. She survives the attack but then understands the truth. Hoyoung's stats are higher than hers. By now her team has already been beaten, so Shung tells the others to finish them fast before they respawn. Wiping blood from her cheek, the assassin asks if the return stone really brings people back from death. MC says yes, but tells her that won't save her now. He figures that even if she lands one powerful hit, he can survive it. All he has to do is endure and take her down. She asks if he really thought he'd won, and a system window pops up in front of him. Out of her 16,000 gold, she spent 8,000 to raise her shooter skill to level 4. Hoyoung panics and rushes her before she can use it, but she opens her eyes and fires twice. The shots slam into him so hard it feels like he got hit by a pro boxer. He hears Seong, Iso, and Stumchul screaming for him, but it's already too late. He starts fading away. The 3rd floor mission is cleared, but Seong looks miserable. Hoyoung asks why he's sulking when they won. Seong complains that he did most of the work, and still got almost no gold. The protagonist smiles, remembering how he never expected her to fire 2 shots back to back at the end. Still, he landed a killing blow on her too. Before vanishing, she says she'll remember his name. After that, the other 3 finish taking the altar, and secure the win. Then someone notices a portal has appeared in front of them, showing the team they just beat. Since they lost the mission, they have to face the catastrophe, and Hoyoung's group watches it happen. Anyone who didn't kill a player during the PvP round is forced to face the catastrophe monster. One of them pounds on the gate, begging for help. Iso walks up to the portal and says they have to do something, but the moment she touches it, she gets shocked. So why didn't it affect that guy? The monster moves forward, smashing through everything. Iso can't bear to watch, while the others stare in horror at what's happening through the portal. Even with death right in front of him, the man still begs for help before the monster crushes him. Hoyoung watches nervously, realizing that could have been them if they had lost. Only one player survived in Tower C-1427, so the groups will now be reorganized. MC looks up in shock. During the PvP mission, the only one who killed anyone was the woman he fought. Then a foot steps into view, showing someone is being summoned into the tower. Everyone turns to look, and she appears before Hoyoung's group covered in blood. The tower announces a new party has been formed. As she wipes blood from her face, she mutters that it was annoying. He gets a very bad feeling. By dawn, the next mission begins. The protagonist's group finds themselves in an abandoned city for the 4th floor. The system warns that a catastrophe is coming, and they must hunt monsters and find escape portals. A portal appears at a random spot each time a monster is killed, and only 20 will spawn. They also can't be handed to anyone else. The 6-hour timer starts. Juno is glad it's finally a monster hunt, after floors 2 and 3, and another player says there won't even be any competition. Song gets pumped, saying he'll crush monsters and finally level up. Iso points out that since portals can't be shared, they shouldn't kill every monster they see. Juno agrees, saying the tower might be setting a trap even if it looks like there are more than enough portals. Song-seung says the safest move is to leave through portals the moment they appear. Hoyoung notices everyone is starting to understand the mission fast and work together like a real team. But there's still one problem. He turns around and the woman from the other group asks why she should follow their plan. She walks off on her own and warns him not to boss her around unless he wants to die. Everyone is furious and starts wondering if they should just gang up on her first. 12 hours earlier, Song asks who she thinks she is. Even unarmed, he says he can handle her easily. Before he can finish, she punches him in the face and drops him. The hit is so hard that blood sprays from Song's mouth, and he crashes to the ground. Everyone is stunned by her strength, and then she speaks. She says they must have lives to throw away if they're acting like this, then calls them trash while Shang lies there half dead. Hoyoung steps in and tells her this isn't her turf, so she should stop causing trouble. He had already dealt with a serial killer in his group, and now an assassin shows up who can fight this well without even using a weapon. He walks up to her and says they've met again, asking if she has anything to say, though he adds they're not close enough for friendly greetings. Then Hoyoung feels something off. He instantly jumps back and a system notice appears. The assassin has marked him as prey. A terrifying aura pours off her as the system says his value has been recognized, and he's been approved as the main target. MC is still confused when another alert appears. He's been given a new strategy in the guide. His expression changes at once. For the first time, he looks scared, though we still don't know what the guide said. The assassin turns away like nothing happened, and the story returns to the 4th floor mission. Shang apologizes to a handsome orc while smashing it for experience. The punch knocks the monster down, and it seems confused about getting beaten up by what looks like another orc. A portal appears behind it, and Shang gets annoyed that it showed up before he could kill more monsters. He stares at the portal, then looks around nervously. A moment later, he turns a corner and finds Hoyoung standing there. Startled, he asks where he came from. He asks why he's acting so scared. Was he doing something shady? Shang fumbles for an excuse, saying he just thought the protagonist had already found a portal for himself. Hoyoung, suspicious of the fake Yujiro, says he must have opened one. Shang's face changes, and he mutters that kids catch on way too fast these days. MC tells him to shut up and kicks him into the portal, forcing him out of the mission. He already knew Shang would try to keep hunting monsters instead of leaving, but there was still one more problem. The system shows him the strategy. Blood Day is coming, and the assassins will awaken their full power. If he dies by the assassin's hand, she'll get a huge reward. So until then, he needs to focus on leveling up. As Hoyoung runs, he thinks he doesn't know when Blood Day will happen, but it'll probably be somewhere the assassin can slaughter a lot of people. A level 10 orc charges him, calling him a weak human. The protagonist cuts down both the orc and its axe in one strike. He keeps taking the extra experience because he needs to get as strong as possible before that day. Standing by the dead orc, he notices no portal appeared. If he had enough time, he could wipe out every monster here, but not everyone has escaped yet, so he can't. He also has to watch out for the assassin, now revealed as Soyoung. If she's out killing every monster she can, he'll need a plan. As Hoyoung moves through the city, he catches a horrible smell. A fat blue orc appears, and the system explains that all orcs stink, but the ones that generate portals smell even worse. He turns with a grin and says this big guy is exactly the one he needed to cut in half. The orc just looks confused, but Hoyoung doesn't give it time to react and attacks. In a single leap, he slices the orc clean in two, and a portal appears. Then suddenly, Hoyoung is with Seoyeon, kneeling in front of her. She asks what he thinks he's doing, and he begs her to spare him with a pitiful puppy eye look. Seoyeon is thrown off by the act. Around the city, MC's group keeps taking down orcs, while she just trembles in silence. Still putting on his best innocent face, he whines about how unlucky he is, since he still hasn't found a portal. She asks if he's always this unlucky, and he answers that he's never won a lottery, a bet, or even a raffle. A luck-based mission just isn't for him. As he brushes back his hair, Hoyoung thinks to himself that he's actually been avoiding every portal-spawning orc on purpose. That means Seoyeon can't kill him until Blood Day, and she's shaking with rage. Still, she has no choice but to let him keep taking the monsters she wanted. If he fails to find a portal and dies here, that would be bad for her too. Meanwhile, the protagonist keeps hunting, knowing she has no idea he already found his own portal. The system announces that another player has found a portal. Only 5 more need to appear now. MC is glad to hear it. Nice to know the others can handle themselves. Then he smacks his own head and groans. Only 5 left. That's just his bad luck at work. Seoyeon glares at him and tells him to stop whining and keep hunting. He answers, "Yes, ma'am," and runs off as another orc charges in. That makes him think of the fake Yugoro. He destroys the monster, feeling guilty and satisfied at the same time, then keeps going. Seoyeon bites her nails in frustration, unable to hunt monsters herself. She's genuinely worried now, because if he dies in this mission, she loses her reward. Hoyoung glances back with his sword over his shoulder and asks why she looks so nervous when he still hasn't found a portal. Then he asks how many portals she has opened so far. She answers, 5. He thinks that's a lot, but not enough to ruin his plan. If Seoyeon had opened 5 and Hoyoung had opened 1, then by his count there should still be 3 portals left after everyone else escaped. The system confirms it. That was the exact number of portals still left, so only the 2 of them were still trapped in the mission zone. Everyone else had already made it back. The protagonist decides it's time to split up and find another portal before time runs out. Then the system warns him there are only 10 minutes left. That makes MC freeze for a second. He takes off running and tells Seoyeon to search on her own, find a portal, and get out. She tells him to wait, and Hoyoung tenses up. For a second, he wonders if she figured out his plan. He turns back and asks what she wants, since he has less than 10 minutes left to escape. She starts mumbling, and Hoyoung can't make out what she's saying, but he doesn't have time to stand around. Then, she suddenly rushes at him, and he jerks up his sword, thinking she's about to attack. Instead, Seoyeon grabs his sleeve, and red-faced admits she forgot where her portals were. Hoyoung stares at her embarrassed face and wonders if she has zero sense of direction. A moment later, they're back in the tower. Fast footsteps rush over, and Seoyeon runs in to hug him, yelling that he knew MC would make it, but before he can finish, a punch smashes into his face and sends him flying. Hoyoung says Seon scared him so badly he thought the mission was still going. Seon says he really does look like an orc, and he tells her she didn't have to say that out loud. Iseol walks up, glad Seon made it back too, and Juno is happy to see them both safe. He offers her a handshake, saying they started as enemies, but he hopes they can get along now. She just looks at him with her arms crossed and turns away, brushing him off as annoying. Seon gets back up with a swollen face and grumbles that she should have been left to die on the 4th floor. She shuts him down and calls him a pig. He snaps back that it's muscle, not fat. While the fake Ejiro keeps cursing at Seonyun, Hoyoung wonders if he should have left her behind after all. In the end, he decides she was never going to die that easily, but now she owes him. He still has to watch her since she's the assassin, though she probably won't make a move before Blood Day. Until then, he should be safe. Could Blood Day be the PMT? Then someone comments that everyone seems to be getting along. They all know that voice. Sniffles shows up, calling himself their favorite mascot. At that exact moment, something blows his head clean off. Seon lowers her weapon and asks why he came crawling over here. Even headless, Sniffles stays standing. Everyone is stunned. She shot him at point-blank range. He casually says it's been a while, and thanks her for the warm welcome as his head grows back right in front of them. A second later, Sniffles appears beside Seon and kicks her so hard she spits blood. Hoyoung looks over to where she landed. She crashed hard enough to wreck the wall, and blood drips from her mouth as she calls the rabbit a monster. The protagonist can tell Sniffles sent her flying without any effort. Judging by his stats, Sniffles actually held back. Maybe the assassin role matters that much in the tower, so he chose not to kill her. Sniffles just chuckles and tells everyone to calm down. It's still too early for him to go home, he says. Then he turns back and announces the next mission. Before sending them up though, he'll tweak the scenario a little. He snaps his fingers, and a library appears behind him. Sniffles pulls out a book and says each of them gets to choose one. The right book might save their lives. The wrong one could get them killed. It all depends on what they pick. Seon yells that he won't let a book decide his future, while Seon thinks he should pick one that boosts his sword skills. Sniffles warns them not to tell anyone what's in their book, and says everything will vanish when the mission begins. So they'd better choose something they won't regret. Then Sniffles disappears. Someone asks if that's really all the explanation they're getting, and another player says they need to hurry and grab something useful. There are all kinds of books and most people start choosing based on their class. Hoyoung figures that makes sense. This isn't the time to gamble on something random. The problem is, the guide tells him to pick a fiction book instead of anything that actually looks helpful. So MC follows the guide and picks a novel called The Monopoly of Connections of the SS Rank Returned. The system warns him he can't change it or tell anyone what's inside. One look at the title, and he already knows it's garbage. Still, if the guide pointed him to it, there has to be a reason, so he starts reading. It turns out to be a super generic fantasy story, and Hoyoung gets seriously annoyed. Then he glances over at Juno. Juno picked the Path of the Sword, and is already practicing moves from it. Soyoung chose a book on the king's martial arts, and is getting stronger too. Asuyol picked the principles of oriental medicine, and a strong healing aura starts coming off her. Watching everyone else power up, Hoyoung feels jealous, and thinks he made the worst pick possible. Then a loud noise makes him turn around. Sojong is using a shovel to pound something into the floor. When he's done, there's a tent set up in the lobby, and he has no idea what kind of book lets you do that. He hears more hammering, and when he looks again, he spots Saevyun stabbing nails into a voodoo doll of Sniffles, muttering that she'll kill him next time. Hoyoung sees all that, and decides to turn away and act like he saw nothing. Eventually, the time runs out. They're about to be sent to the tower's 5th floor. A window pops up, with 2 pens sitting on a desk, and Hoyoung realizes they're in a classroom. He looks around at all the people there, wondering who they are. None of them are moving. Then someone says they all became young again. They'd been turned into their younger selves. Si Chang is a skinny nerd now, and the protagonist looks over at Soo-young laughing at him. Other than shorter hair, Soo-young barely changed. Someone points out he doesn't look that different. Hoyoung turns and sees Isul. She also looks mostly the same, just in a school uniform, and it really suits her. Juno doesn't seem to have changed either, and he says Isul looks the same too. MC glances beside him and asks if the girl there is Soo-young. She snaps at him not to stare, then crushes the glasses she was wearing. So she used to be a nerd too. Hoyoung thinks she still looks mostly the same, though she probably needed those glasses she just broke. Then the classroom speakers crackle with someone testing a mic, and everyone recognizes Sniffles' voice. He asks if they like being young again, and says youth is a beautiful thing. Then he explains that the 5th mission is a role-playing game, set in a world of humans and monsters. They're cadets at a hunter school. For the next 4 days they'll face tests, and anyone who fails gets sent straight to a death mission. If they fail even one test, they die. Hoyoung has survived a death mission before, but most of the others probably wouldn't. He immediately regrets not choosing a more useful book instead of that stupid fantasy novel. Sniffles says they'll now receive the memories needed for their roles. Lights appear, shoot toward everyone. Broken pieces of memory pour into Hoyoung's head, leaving his mind dizzy. The system tells him new memories have been implanted. Sweating and out of breath, he feels like 2 timelines are mixed together in his head, and the best part is, the memories match the exact story he read before the mission started. Sniffles announces that the first mission will start when this class ends, so they should enjoy the moment while they still can. Time starts moving again, and the teacher goes right back to class, talking about the fastest way to boost mana. Juno whispers that everything's normal again, and Hoyoung realizes they're basically side characters in the story. Then he looks ahead and spots the real main character of the novel. His name is Yunam Owa, and he went back in time. Because he knows the future, he can grab all the big chances for himself, and grow stronger than anyone else. The teacher asks if anyone wants to answer a question for extra credit. Yunam smiles a little, and Hoyoung knows why the question is something ordinary cadets would never know. Yunam raises his hand to answer, but he beats him to it, and says the answer is a substance called Action. He even adds that Professor Brown and his university team are researching it, and the whole class is impressed. Yunam's expression is the best part. He clearly didn't see that coming. Even the teacher is amazed and calls the protagonist a genius. The system announces that he earned extra credits, and now he finally gets why the guide made him read that novel. He doesn't need martial arts or sword books. He's going to steal every chance the story's main character was supposed to use to get stronger. Best of all, the teacher keeps praising him, while Hoyoung tries not to grin too hard. Then the bell rings, and class is over. Soyoung asks how he knew the answer, and MC lies, saying it came from the memories they were given. Soyoung is impressed, and jokes that maybe he is the real main character here, and everyone else is just an extra. He tells him to go complain to the Ishal, walks over and asks when the first mission will start. The protagonist thinks that if the book was right, it should happen right now. Then the system sends out a mission to everyone. They have to clear a dungeon that appeared beside Academy Building B37. They get 60 minutes, and if they fail, it's straight to a death mission. Seeing the message, the protagonist remembers the boss drops an item he badly needs. In the story, Yunam gets it, but he can't let that happen this time. He shouts for everyone to move and they rush after him. A notice pops up. They've entered the orc lair. Yunam glances back, totally confused, asking why all these people followed him into the dungeon. The protagonist ignores him. Instead, he sprints past Yunam and swings at the orc ahead. One slash splits it in two. The protagonist says the dungeon isn't his alone, which only confuses Yunam more. He can't figure out how they even found this place, and now he's wondering if their class was always this strong. Two of them stand out the most. The protagonist and Seyon. There's no way he would have forgotten people this strong. So Yunam summons his weapon, thinking they'll steal all his kills at this rate. He draws back his spear and hurls it at 4 orcs. The hit sends all 4 flying at once. Then the spear spins back, and he catches it like it's nothing. Seyon blurts out, "What the hell was that?" Yunam just twirls the spear. He's seriously strong. Now the protagonist gets why Yunam is the main character. He's even stronger than expected. Still, he refuses to give up the dungeon reward. So this turns into a race. At this speed, clearing the dungeon on time will be easy. But to face the boss, he has to kill more orcs than anyone else. Yunam may be stronger, but the protagonist has one edge. He can find the hidden orcs. Xiaobei notices him heading straight for them, and remembers how he fooled her in the last mission. She won't fall for that again. The protagonist rushes 2 orcs and drops them with ease. Then he closes in on a third, which still hasn't reacted. Hoyang pulls his sword back, ready to thrust, while the orc braces to counter. At the same time, Soyan slips past an orc's attack and lands a clean shot. She instantly turns and fires at another one behind her. Then something drops toward her from above, but she catches it in time and flips away from the blow. Even upside down, she aims and fires. Yunam sets his spear, gives it one spin, and cuts down 3 orcs in a single move. Meanwhile, Izol and Juno can only stare at the strength of those 3. Izol notices the protagonist is way stronger than before, and Juno is blown away by all 3 of them. She admires how hard they're fighting to keep the others from ending up on the death mission. Juno says the protagonist is risking so much for them even after they voted him into that mission, and everyone gets emotional, wiping away tears. Juno thanks Hoyang for showing them mercy. He raises his sword and yells for everyone to fight harder for their hero, the protagonist. The protagonist glances back, baffled by everyone suddenly calling him a hero. He lowers his sword, breathing hard. Then the system announces all the orcs are dead, and the boss room has appeared. Another message says the right to challenge the boss went to Yunam. A light shines over the winner, and the protagonist looks his way. He's frustrated. Even after all that, he still didn't earn the boss fight. So what now? Does he really have to give up on the item? As Yunam reaches for the boss room door, the protagonist calls out to him. He asks Yunam to give up the challenge right. Yunam asks why he'd ever do that. The protagonist answers with a question. Doesn't he want to know how to escape the endless regression cycle? Yunam's face twists with anger, while the protagonist smiles. He's not letting that item go. The boss room doors open, and the system says someone has entered. It's the protagonist. Then the scene cuts to Yunam pointing his spear at him, demanding to know who he is. The protagonist asks him to lower the weapon first, but Yunam cuts him off and presses the spear to his neck. He demands to know how the protagonist knows he's a regressor. The protagonist asks if that matters, and Yunam pushes the spear in harder. Then the protagonist asks if he doesn't want to see the winter of his 32nd year. That only makes Yunam angrier. A memory plays back in the rain, with someone asking if his reset point is always November when he's 17. Holding a wine glass, Yunam confirms it. It's always the same. His life loops from age 17 to 32. The other man says that honestly sounds pretty good, but Yunam says his deepest wish is to see the winter of age 32. Touching the window, he says he's sick of this endless cycle. Back in the present, the protagonist pushes Yunam's spear aside. Then he says that if Yunam lets him take the boss fight, he'll tell him how to break free from the regression loop. The one thing Yunam has wanted for thousands of years. Yunam grits his teeth, but in the end he has no choice, and lowers the spear. He warns that if this is a joke, the protagonist won't be smiling for long. Then he turns away, letting him challenge the boss. The system confirms Yunam transferred the challenge right, and the protagonist enters the boss room. The orc boss stomps forward with heavy steps. Smoke pours from its mouth as it starts to growl. The protagonist trembles. This thing is absurdly strong. He forces himself to stay calm as it closes in. Since he's inside a fantasy story, he can't check stats or read a guide, but he already knows how to beat it. The orc pulls in a huge breath, and the protagonist knows what's coming. First, he has to survive the warrior's roar. Most fighters lose their nerve after hearing it, but his instinct skill lets him not only sharpen his senses, it can shut them off too. After the morale attack passes, he opens his eyes and leaps at the boss, shouting that a trick like that won't stop him. He also knows one more thing. The orc's upper body is terrifying, but its legs are weak, so he cuts both leg tendons and slips past the axe swing. Then he keeps hammering at its legs until the giant drops to its knees, unable to stand. The last thing it sees is the protagonist jumping in with his sword. He brings down a fierce vertical slash and yells that he'll take this strange fate for himself. The boss drops an item, and the room is cleared. Later, the scene cuts to 2 people playing rock, paper, scissors. It almost looked like they should add Lizard and Spock. It's Seng against the protagonist, and Seng has already lost 11 straight. Seng asks if he's somehow cheating. The protagonist asks how anyone cheats at rock, paper, scissors, tells him to shut up and hand over the gold. Junho says he'd expect nothing less from Hoyang. He's even good at this. While sipping a drink, The protagonist looks at the ring on his finger and thinks about the two legendary items in this story. One is Yunam's weapon, Gungnir, a spear that never misses once it's thrown. The other is Nick's ring, which greatly boosts the user's luck. Its power sounds simple, but it's almost on Gungnir's level. For everything coming next, this ring will be a huge help. Now Yunam will have to keep going without it, but the protagonist plans to help him back. After all, Yunam only truly wants one thing, and we already know what that is. Suddenly, a hand slams a cup onto the protagonist's table, and someone sits down. She wants a round of rock, paper, scissors with him. But this game isn't only luck. Speed matters too, and the protagonist's dexterity is nearly 50. He asks what the wager is. She says 3,000 gold. Sureng is shocked by the amount, but the protagonist just stares back and raises it to 5,000 gold. The next day, everyone gathers in the schoolyard. The protagonist realizes this is one of those story moments where everyone measures their strength with a magic item. Now they'll all see how strong he really is. And yes, Sureng lost the bet, and is now 5,000 gold poorer. The protagonist stands before a huge blue crystal with sword in hand, as a teacher explains the test. Each cadet will strike the crystal, which will measure their magic power and sort them into groups for the next dungeon in 2 days. Juno likes the idea. He's been curious how strong the rest of the class is. The first cadet steps up and slashes the stone. It shows 43 power, and people are impressed right away. Juno says that number must be high from everyone's reaction, and the protagonist says the implanted memories told him that cadet was actually strong. Then the teacher calls the next person. It is Juno's turn. He strikes the stone, and it shows 69. That gets even more attention, and Juno starts bragging that he's pretty strong. Xiaobei steps up shirtless and tells Juno to move, because this kind of thing is his specialty. He throws a full power punch, and the stone records 75. Everyone is stunned by Xiaobei's score, especially since he did it without a weapon. A magic bullet zips past Sir Xiaobei's son and slams into the stone. Then Sir Xiaobei steps up with a gun in her hand. The reading shoots up to 98. One student blurts out that the score is insane, while another is shocked that someone can even load magic into bullets. The protagonist feels proud of his group. They're stronger than the other cadets, which makes sense since they're really adults in young bodies. He reminds himself not to forget that. Then another blast goes off, and the meter jumps to 115. By then, Yunam is already walking away without even looking back. The protagonist expected that much. As the story's main character, Yunam was always going to be different. But when he looks at Yunam's back, he remembers something bad is about to happen to him. Later, during lunch, Xiaobei's son says he should have shown off more, but the protagonist shrugs it off without a reward. Why bother? He only used enough strength to score 64, and he didn't even act serious. He wanted to end up in Yunam's dungeon group, not get a top score and become leader. While they eat, the system suddenly announces the second mission. Their goal is to rescue Yunam, a cadet from the academy. They have 1 hour, and he's at Waterside Park. Oizil asks if that's the same cadet from yesterday's dungeon, and Juno says yes, wondering if he got caught in some kind of trap. The others panic over the 1 hour limit, though at least Waterside Park isn't far from the school. The protagonist had a feeling this would happen. After Yunam came back the first time, he beat up some academy bullies, but one of them was the only son of Park Yang-sik, leader of the Red Moon Guild, one of the top 10 guilds in the world. So Park Yang-sik sent his men after Yunam, ordering them to leave him barely alive. In the original story, Yunam survives only because a mysterious person saves him by pure luck. The protagonist rushes out to save him, knowing that in the original, that lucky rescue only happened because of Nick's ring. Isiel says if someone as strong as Yun Sheng needs help, this mission must be dangerous. The protagonist agrees. They need to get ready, because whoever they face won't go down easy. No matter how strong Yun Sheng is, he's still just a cadet. So the group runs through the night, determined to save him. When they find him, Yunam is on his knees, and one of the men has a hand on his shoulder, mocking him as a worm, and asking how he dared cross their master. Before he can keep talking, Xiaobei's bullets fly in. They slam straight into his chest. The protagonist complains that she attacked too soon, but Xiaobei likes the opening, and charges in at once. The protagonist tries to get Xiaobei's attention, gives up on stopping her, draws his sword, and tells everyone to move. The fight is on. The enemies block with ease and quickly realize these are just academy cadets, same as Yunam. The man who got shot curses at them, and when another mocks him for getting hit so easily, he snaps back and tells him to shut up. It looked like Xiaobei fired wildly, but her timing was perfect. There are only 3 enemies, yet they're clearly stronger, so surprise was their only real chance. Yun Sheng uses that moment to summon his weapon. He swings it behind him and hits the blue-haired man, though it looks like the guy still blocked it. Yun Sheng spins his spear and turns on the other 2, but they dodge. The protagonist group regroups, with Xiaobei taking the lead against the 3 adults. The protagonist and Yun Sheng end up back to back, and Yun Sheng says he has no idea how he found him again, but now isn't the time to ask. The protagonist tells him to save the thanks for later. First they deal with these guys. The blue-haired man rises again, and Xiaobei rushes him with a punch, calling him weak. He uses level 2 stone fist. but the man throws up a barrier that blasts Xiaobei away. That guy really does keep getting tossed around. The group stares in shock at what the blue-haired man just did. He scowls even harder and starts insulting them again, calling them rude little brats. Xiaobei crashes back near the protagonist's group, shaking and unable to figure out what just happened. The man laughs and says they're still kids who know nothing about how cruel the real world is. He takes off his cracked glasses, and the three men charge the protagonist's group together. The fight spreads out. Xiaobei takes one. The protagonist blocks the blue-haired man, and Junho clashes with the third. While holding the line, the protagonist calls to Xiaobei telling her to cover them. She grumbles about taking orders, but keeps firing anyway. Then healing magic starts spreading across the fight, glowing green around Xiaobei's hand as he soul treats everyone's injuries. Yuncheng is surprised by how good her healing is. His wounds are already gone. The protagonist shouts that the enemies are strong, but there's no way the mission would be impossible. They while blocking another strike from the blue-haired man. Now is the time to use the skills they learned from the books. Yuncheng unleashes a sword skill, while Xiaobei charges in, neck veins popping, and throws the first punch of the king's fist. Meanwhile, Sechang is somehow setting up a tent. That was the only thing he managed to learn from the books before the mission. The blue-haired man, totally confused, snaps that if they have time to talk nonsense, they must be looking down on them. So the three adults decide to strike together. Their combined attack detonates with enough force to blow up the whole spot. As the dust clears, everyone is still on their feet, even after taking that hit. The protagonist knows his team is strong. After everything they've been through, he believed they'd become a solid group that wouldn't fall easily. But these three men have fought side by side far longer, and their teamwork is on another level. He studies the fight and realizes that if one of the three goes down, their whole formation will collapse. The problem is, he can't find an opening. It feels like trying to break through a steel gate with no cracks. Xiaobei keeps healing them, and tells everyone to hang on. She'll support them no matter what. One of the adults laughs, saying they're stubborn for a bunch of kids, and that the hunters of their country have a bright future. The white-haired man tells him to stop relaxing. If this drags on, it'll get dangerous for them too. The blue-haired man is furious now. These kids are seriously getting on his nerves. Grinding his teeth, his eyes go red with rage, and he leaps up, yelling that they're a pain in the neck. Raising his club, he says he'll start with Isol and swings at her. The protagonist turns and shouts her name, but Yunyam calmly lifts his spear and says it won't be that easy, then drives it into the blue-haired man's stomach. The man is stunned, because he was sure he dodged it. He tumbles away, crouches down, and glares at Yunyam while cursing him out. His mouth is as nasty as ever. The other two hurry over, and one warns him not to rush. That's when the protagonist notices their formation has broken. The steel gate finally has a gap. The blue-haired man's club sprouts metal spikes, and he swears he's going to kill everyone here. The protagonist sees what's really happening. They're rattled. This is taking too long, and they're getting impatient. He already knows exactly why. The other two charge again with the blue-haired man between them, setting up another three-man attack. Then the protagonist asks if they'll really be okay once their boss finds out how badly this is going. That makes them stop mid-attack, and the blue-haired man demands to know what he means. The protagonist says he seems awfully tense. He brings up the leader of Red Moon, Park Young-sik. The blue-haired man instantly looks shaken, and the other two ask how he knows that name. The opening widens. Smiling, the protagonist keeps pushing, saying plenty of people have died because that man lost his temper. Now all three are visibly nervous, and their guard drops completely. The three strongest on their side notice it at once. This is the moment. Yunjum drives his weapon into the blue-haired man's stomach. Xiaobei smashes him from the side, and the protagonist rushes in with a diagonal slash that lands clean. All they had to do was take down one. The blue-haired man finally drops, and the other two freeze in shock. Yun Xiaob and the protagonist move in on the last two, but the black-haired man suddenly starts laughing in despair. He says that's enough, and the two boys stop, confused. The men put away their weapons and walk over to the fallen blue-haired one. As they lift him onto their shoulders, the black-haired man says their boss will probably kill them for coming back like this. Still, after seeing the hunters who are supposed to be Korea's future, they have no regrets. The white-haired man mutters that he's doing things his own way again, and then both of them vanish with a smile. The system announces that the mission is complete. They won. Soyeon's shirt bursts apart from pure excitement, and everyone starts yelling with joy. The protagonist wipes sweat from his face, thinking that was way too close. They only had 2 minutes left. Yunam asks if the protagonist knew this was going to happen. Dodging the question, he says they saved Yunam first. Shouldn't he thank them before asking anything? Embarrassed, Yunam quietly thanks them. The protagonist teases him, saying he didn't hear that. Then he drops the joke and thinks that for Yunam, this regression may have changed more than any other. Yunam thanks them again, this time loud enough for everyone to hear. In all his past regressions, he'd never been through anything like this. As the protagonist turns to leave, he tells Yunam to be careful. This regression will be the hardest one yet. Yunam stops him and says he still has one question. He asks if the protagonist is a regressor too. After a short pause, the protagonist just smiles and says no. Then he says he's something even greater than that, and starts walking off. That answer leaves Yunyam impressed, but he reaches out, grabs the protagonist's shoulder, and asks where he's going. There's still one thing he forgot to say, the way to break the curse of regression. The next day begins. In class, the teacher announces the teams for tomorrow's dungeon training. The protagonist barely listens. His mind is still on Yunyam. The guy really knows how to move fast. Then he checks his inventory and finds a rare item called Thea's armor. It gives plus 25 defense. He remembers it was a reward for his answer about ending the regression curse. Strange as it is, he's gotten used to accepting impossible things. This kind of stuff only belongs in novels. Then the teacher says Yunyam will lead Group 4. The members are Woo Ji-ho, Shin Sung-daem, Go Young-woo, and Lee Ho-young. The protagonist is glad he ended up in Yunyam's group, just like he wanted. Nick's ring made that happen. He joined Yunyam's team to get the best rewards, but this wasn't the time to relax. Later, outside the school, Yunyam asks if he knows that the practice dungeon is going to turn frantic. The protagonist says nothing, so Yunyam explains that this kind of dungeon event happens sometimes, but not in several places at once. In every regression, these dungeons cause trouble, and he never learned why. Looking straight at him, Yunyam says he hopes he'll share any information he has. If he's really something beyond a regressor, he should know something. From what the protagonist remembers, 3 of the 4 groups will face the frantic dungeon. That's how the story goes. 3 out of 4 teams get dragged into it. And in that event, only Group 4 survives. That's Yunyam's group. The novel never explained the frenzy in detail, so the protagonist tells him he doesn't know everything either. Yunyam refuses to accept that, and grabs him by the collar. He shouts that even if fate can't be changed, they still have to try. The protagonist yells back that he really doesn't know. The author never explained it. That part of the novel was so vague that there's nothing he can do. So Yoen hears his voice and recognizes it. She walks over, turns the corner, and asks what they're doing. The protagonist and Yunyam are tugging at each other's clothes, and the whole thing looks way too suspicious. Soyeon freezes. The 2 boys are just as awkward. She turns around and mutters that she must have taken a wrong turn. They both shout that it's not what it looks like, but she leaves anyway. Soon they're at the dungeon, and the professor calls Group 4 forward. They enter the portal. The system announces that they've arrived inside the dungeon, and gives the protagonist a mission: clear the dungeon assigned to him. He's still embarrassed about what happened with Shoyun, but the frantic dungeon problem matters more. Yunyam suggests they split up and scout the area. If anything happens, they report it by radio. Everyone agrees. Still deep in thought, the protagonist wanders through the dungeon. After a while, he reaches a long corridor and starts thinking. The frantic dungeon incident involves Groups 4, 9, and 12. Group 4 is his own. Group 9 has Isol and Shoyun, and Group 12 has Shoyun. Group 9 should be okay. Isol can heal, and the assassin blessed by the tower shouldn't die that easily on the 5th floor. Even now, he's busy worrying about who might end up killing him. Group 12 is led by Seyeon, and thinking of that, he quietly wishes his fake Yujiro friend the best. Then a canine paw appears right in front of him. He reacts at once, looks up, and finds at least 4 wolves, all ready to tear him apart. He tightens his grip on his sword, and reminds himself to focus on what's in front of him. The real issue is the person hiding behind him. It's Go Young-woo, an explorer and the youngest player in the group. He's crying as he apologizes. The protagonist can't figure out why he's acting like this. The wolves are already dead. He walks over to the boy and remembers how he used to be the weakest one in the group. Young-woo had even voted to send him on that deadly mission before, so he asks if he's still stuck on that. Young-woo says he wanted to talk sooner, but he couldn't work up the nerve. He apologizes again, crying even harder. Trying to wipe his face, he keeps breaking down, while the protagonist waits in silence, thinking the kid's too soft. Finally, he grabs him by the shoulders and says he doesn't need to keep saying sorry. If the same thing happens again, he should make the same choice. What they're facing is completely real. In this tower, anyone can die at any time. If he stays this soft-hearted, he won't make it. To survive here, he has to put himself first. Then the protagonist smiles and ruffles his hair, telling him to stop feeling guilty. Young-woo smiles too, getting teary all over again, and says the protagonist is amazing. The protagonist steps back and says he has no idea what he's talking about, but it's already too late. The boy is completely charmed. More fired up now, Young-woo says the protagonist must have been someone incredible before the world ended. That makes him pause, and old memories come back. Growing up in an orphanage, he had to fight through prejudice just to survive. Before he knew it, he was in his 20s, working a normal job and earning barely enough to eat. The only reason he became special in the tower was that lucky accident with the monster he saved. Without that, he might not have survived this long. So who was he to teach anyone anything? Young-woo calls his name and asks what he was thinking about so hard, but he brushes it off as nothing. Then the boy thanks Ho-young-lee. Even after saying survival comes first, the protagonist keeps risking himself to save other people. Youngwoo looks at him with open admiration and says he wants to become someone like that, someone who can help others. That leaves Ho Young-lee surprised, but also a little happy. What matters now is the road ahead, and he pats Youngwoo's head while thinking that Youngwoo places his hands against a stone wall. The protagonist asks if this is where he sensed something strange, and Youngwoo says yes, something seems to be leaking from inside. Even with his sharp senses, the protagonist can't pick up everything. If only an explorer can notice it, then he has to act. He tells Youngwoo to move back. Then he draws his sword and uses his level 3 sword skill. The strike slams into the wall. A strange reaction starts, and a second explosion follows. Right then, the system announces they've entered a labyrinth. They're pulled into a cave filled with bright-colored stones. The protagonist looks around and realizes this labyrinth was never in the novel. Not even across Unim's many regressions was it ever mentioned. That leaves only one answer in his mind. This place wasn't made by the novel's author. As Ho Young-lee and Youngwoo move through the maze, he thinks this place might explain the frantic dungeon. Then Youngwoo tugs his sleeve, and ahead of them they spot people in the labyrinth. Looking closer, the protagonist realizes they aren't human. The system identifies one as part of the fairy race, level 134. His name is Jamba, and his stats are insanely high. The dwarf complains that this is a huge pain, and he's with 6 others who are just as strong. Staring at them, the protagonist asks what those things are. One of them, Jebshem, tells him to wait. The 2 of them aren't supposed to be here, especially the tall one, he says, pointing at the protagonist. The dwarf yells that he completely changed the story, and blurts out a huge spoiler to Youngwoo. Jamba glares at the protagonist and says they need to talk. The 7 creatures crowd around him with their arms crossed, and he might have felt threatened if they weren't all half his height. Jamba demands to know who he is. The protagonist wonders where the guy is looking, and quickly covers his private parts. Then he says he's a reader who knew this world from a story. Another dwarf asks if he woke up inside the novel, and he says it's basically like that. 2 of them whisper to each other, trying to decide if they believe him. Then the protagonist asks who they are. Their answer is simple. They're repairing fairies. He thinks, shouldn't that be repairing dwarves? They explain they fix plot holes in broken novels like this one. Jamba even tries to pose, but his hammer is gone. At that point, the protagonist realizes these are the beings from the novel. Smiling, he says they must be busy with all the holes they have to patch. The fairy dwarf things get emotional when he recognizes them. As far as he's concerned, the book really is a mess. He agrees and says it was hard enough just finishing that trash. The fairies laugh and say they were going to bury him here, but now they'll just erase his memories and let him go. That scares him badly, especially because they say it with totally straight faces. He absolutely can't let them do that. If they erase his memories now, all the work he did to find this labyrinth will mean nothing. The protagonist panics and yells, saying the real problem is the 3rd floor of the frantic dungeon, the mistake they still haven't fixed. Jamba's hand keeps moving toward him, but freezes the moment he brings that up. The fairies demand to know how he knows about it. Even if this novel was complete garbage, he still picked up a few useful things from it. With a grin, he says he might have the answer they need. One thing he learned from the novel was that Yunnem could always find a way, no matter how bad things got. A portal suddenly opens, and the protagonist and Yunnem are thrown out of the labyrinth. Yunnem looks over at him, but he just stands there staring blankly ahead. Yunnem asks what's wrong, but gets nothing back. Did those dwarves mess with him? He shouts the protagonist's name, yet the voice sounds far away, like he can barely hear it. Then we jump back, where the protagonist says he knows how to help the fairies fix the frantic dungeon problem. One fairy admits that if they leave it alone, it could become the biggest plot hole ever, and ruin their name as repairers. So they agree to hear him out, though the fairy still keeps a hand ready to erase his memory. The protagonist says they should combine the 3 dungeons that are about to go frantic into a single dungeon through a portal. Another fairy says that if the 3 are merged into one, then having one frantic dungeon would make a lot more sense than 3 happening at once. Jamba admits that does sound convincing, but a bigger dungeon would also mean bigger rewards. Another fairy agrees that side effect could cause a problem even they can't clean up later. Hoyong understands their worry. If Yunnem gets a reward bigger than the story allows, everything could go off track. He tightens his fists and makes one last play. Then he asks if it would work better if he got the full reward instead of Yunnem. The dwarves start arguing over the idea. The protagonist realizes he's done all he can. Now it comes down to luck, and Nick's ring. Jamba says it would still be safest to erase the protagonist's memories. That leaves him stunned. If some random side character got a reward that huge, it could create another mess for them too. The MC keeps trying to argue, but it's over. Jamba's hand is already on his head, and he starts screaming while flipping off every fairy there. Back in the present, Yongwoo is slapping the MC so hard he's spitting ketchup. Still, he can't snap him out of his daze, so he pulls a fairy hammer from his backpack, wondering what they did to him. Then the protagonist finally gets up, covered in bruises, muttering Yongwoo's name and saying he's okay. The boy sees he's back to normal and lets out a relieved breath, but the protagonist is still shaking. He thought he was about to get hit with the hammer. After that, they keep moving through the dungeon. Yongwoo apologizes for all the slaps. He thought the protagonist had really lost his memory, and even considered using the hammer to fix him. But in the end, he didn't need it. The protagonist figures he got lucky because the mission had a time limit. He used that to convince the fairy not to erase his memories. There was no point wiping someone who would disappear from there anyway. As they walk, he spots the hammer in Yongwoo's bag and asks if it belongs to Jamba. Jamba. Yongwoo lights up and says that when the fairies vanished with the protagonist, one of them dropped the hammer, so he grabbed it. A system window pops up with the item info. It's a mechanical fairy hammer. It can repair broken items, and even has a chance to make them stronger, but only once every 24 hours. The protagonist is amazed. It's a unique item. Then he asks if Yongwoo tried to use it on him. Looking at the boy, he realizes he's not as weak and helpless as he first seemed. A secret mission appears. He has to clear the dungeon first while staying unnoticed, and the reward is hidden. It's probably tied to the secret deal he made with the fairies. To avoid becoming another mistake in the story, he has to act quietly the whole time. If he pulls it off, he'll earn a special reward. Then the ground starts shaking under them, and he realizes it's begun. The system announces that because of an unknown energy, the dungeon is going frantic. Stronger monsters begin appearing. The 3 dungeons have become one. Yongwoo calls out to him, asking what's going on. 3 dungeons just got fused together. The protagonist keeps moving and tells him to stay calm. He needs to head northeast and find Yunam. With his tracking skill, he should be able to dodge the dangerous monsters and get there safely. The boy is tougher than he looks. Once he's with Yunam, the MC won't need to worry about him. Yunyu asks what the protagonist plans to do. He just smiles, and the scene cuts to another part of the dungeon. A giant scorpion attacks, and suddenly spits venom. One extra panics, and another says the frenzy has powered up the monsters. He thanks Izol for saving them. Without her, they'd already be dead. She snaps at him to focus. When he turns back, the scorpion's stinger is right by his neck. Then it suddenly stops, and when he opens his eyes, the scorpion is already headless. That's when she steps in. Seolyun asks if they think this is a picnic, and tells them to wake up unless they want to end up as skeletons. The protagonist keeps running, cutting down monsters on the way, and hears Seolyun's gunfire in the distance. That tells him he's in the same dungeon as her group. He has a weapon, so he has an edge, but for the other cadets these monsters are deadly. Still, he has to stay hidden, so he can't help them directly. He pushes forward, deciding his only option is to clear the dungeon as fast as possible. A huge purple scorpion appears. It lets out a terrifying screech and gets ready to attack. The protagonist reaches a cave inside the dungeon and starts heading in, because the strongest toxic smell in the whole area is coming from there. The massive scorpion is already in front of him. That's the Scorpion King. Its venom shoots out fast, but the MC moves even faster and slips to the side. Even so, he's tense. The monster has so much venom and keeps spitting it, making it hard for him to close the distance. Yunam can probably handle his side with teamwork, but the other 2 dungeons still need help. Maybe he wants first place, but more than that, he can't ignore a disaster like this when he's close enough to stop it. He charges in through the venom, dodges again and swings diagonally at the monster's neck. It still isn't enough to finish it, so he jumps up again. A second later, a strike comes from the side and slams him straight into a wall. The hit lands clean, pinning him there from the force. The monster screeches like it's laughing at him. The MC knows one thing. He has to get close no matter what, so he drops back down and faces it again. He still has 1 trump card left, and starts wondering if he has to use it now. He says he didn't want to burn it this early, but there's no time to hold back, so he gathers himself and jumps in. Before entering the dungeon, he got a side mission from the professor. Carry a full bucket without spilling even 1 drop. He accepted because the reward was huge, a one-time perfect shield. Now we're back in the fight. The monster blasts all its venom at the protagonist, but he activates the perfect shield. It's basically a cheat item that can block any one attack perfectly. The monster is thrown off when the venom does nothing, so it rushes in with its pincers instead. The protagonist readies his counter, power gathering in his eyes. Then he brings his sword down in a vertical slash, splitting the scorpion in 2 with his level 3 sword technique. The system announces that the boss has been defeated. A portal opens, and the protagonist steps through it. He arrives in a new area, the dungeon where Sobyung is. Right away the MC wonders if he's okay. Then it hits him. He's actually worried about fake Yujiro, and that honestly shocks him. Their first meeting was awful. Fake Yujiro had called him trash, and somehow, after all that, he still found a place in his heart. The protagonist is horrified by that thought, then tells himself he's just mistaken. It's only concern for an enemy, nothing more. He looks ahead and finds himself in a completely empty area, with nothing around him. Then something grabs his attention. A shape bursts from the ground to attack, but he blocks it with his sword. A small paw lands on the blade, then flips over him. The creature stops spinning and attacks again. He finally sees what it is, a horned mole, and its level is too high for him to read. With one fast diagonal slash, the MC cuts it down. It's nasty looking, but before he can relax, he notices bumps moving under the ground behind him. A bunch more moles burst out and rush him at once. They're insanely fast, hitting him from every side as ketchup sprays everywhere. Ho-young notices that even though they're small, they're quick and razor sharp. If he loses focus for even a second, this could get very bad for him. While taking hit after hit, he can only hope Seung is still alive. At the same time, Shung's companions are on the ground, badly hurt. Shung is injured too, but he forces himself to stay up, swearing at the moles and charging them with his fist raised. A mole pops out, and So-young yells that he's the ultimate mole killer. He starts pounding the ground, bragging that he used to destroy every whack-a-mole machine in town. Before long, So-young yells runs out of steam. Then the story shifts to a mole's point of view. It spots So-young from behind and rushes him. So-young lets out a scream, but when he turns, Ho-byung is already there with a mole skewered on his sword. Saved at the last second, So-byung stares as the fake Yujiro asks what happened. MC simply says he somehow made it through. Hearing that, So-byung gets choked up. He rushes in for a hug, but he stops him and tells him to stay back while he's asking nicely. Still, Ho-byung is honestly glad So-byung made it. The others, though, weren't as fortunate. So-byung apologizes, saying the moles came out of nowhere and hit everyone at once. That makes the protagonist realize he may not be able to save them all. Even if they were just side characters in the novel, they were still real people. At this point, they felt like his teammates too. MC's expression hardens, and he clenches his fists. So-byung asks what they do next, and whether there's any way out. Before Ho-byung can answer, the ground begins to shake. So-byung panics and asks what's going on. He answers, there's only one option. A giant mole bursts up and attacks them. Ho-byung catches the blow with his sword. This is the dungeon boss, and they have to bring it down. He doesn't flinch at all. If anything, he's ready for it now that the mission is over. Later, an old man who looks a lot like Dumbledore gives a public apology. He says no reward can make up for the people they lost, but the academy will do everything it can. After that, the protagonist walks with Yunnan in the rain. He apologizes for failing to save everyone. Yunnan tells him not to. He had gone back again and again, and in none of those tries could he stop the dungeon outbreak. Even so, Ho-young still changed things. Some cadets survived when they should have all died. As the night fades, Yunnan stops and says he finally accepts MC's existence as something more than just a regressor. The two share a small smile. Then Yunnan hands him a handkerchief and says he'll come to him for advice from now on. With that, he walks away, leaving Ho-young holding the cloth. It almost feels weirdly like a confession. Pushing that thought aside, he wipes his face. Then he quietly apologizes, because the protagonist Yunnan meets tomorrow won't really be him. Soon they'll be sent back from this mission. Just as Yunnan hopes to see winter at 32 and the end of this novel, MC has to keep climbing and reach the tower's end. Yunnan's fate may already be written, but Ho-young plans to decide how this tower ends. Then someone calls his name and tells him to wait. His group is coming over, and he realizes they may be the ones who truly decide the ending. All of them want the same thing, a happy ending. The system announces that the 5th floor mission is complete. One extra says everyone did well to survive, while another jokes that the mission made him feel years older. The whole group celebrates, but Ho-young is happier than anyone. He just got a new skill, intermediate sword technique. He couldn't even afford something like that in the system shop, so this is huge. Even one rank in sword skill changed everything, so an intermediate level is a massive boost. And that wasn't all. The fairies also gave him another reward for the hidden mission, a new class slot. Ho-young jokes that he never thought he'd end up working 2 jobs at the end of the world. Still, compared to every job he's had before, this is the most excited he's ever been. He picks up the items and uses them. Right away, the system tells him he has gained a new class. He expects something amazing, maybe Shadow Monarch, Rune Regent, or Coin King. The class name starts to appear. Ho-young gets more excited by the second. Then the Nick ring, which stayed with him after the mission, begins to glow. His new class is Beast Tamer, and his face drops instantly. He yells at the system asking where his awesome class went, while Sirion just stares at him in confusion. A moment later, Ho-young pauses. Tamer, that word brings back a memory. He remembers a time when a cat started following him. Back then, he told it to stop because he couldn't take care of it. The cat only looked up at him and meowed. Blushing, the protagonist tries to resist, saying a cute face won't work on him, but the cat looks even sadder. His face gets redder, and he shuts his eyes and runs off. As he leaves, he apologizes to the kitten for not being able to keep it. He was broke back then, so he had no choice. Now things are different. If he can legally become a cat butler now, then maybe Beast Tamer isn't so bad after all. The system then tells him he has received a new guide. That gets him excited right away. The guide says a monster on the 7th floor can become his pet, and it's fast, strong, and useful for travel too. Ho-young starts imagining the monster from the guide's description, and wonders if it's some kind of wolf. Just thinking about reaching the 7th floor and getting that pet fires him up. He strikes an eager pose, realizing this is the first time he's actually looked forward to the next mission. The problem was, Thinking they'd reach the 7th floor quickly was a huge mistake. The 6th floor mission was called Endless Battle. In the back, ICL kept healing everyone while they fought off waves of orcs, werewolves, and more monsters. Yahello even swung his backpack like a weapon and slammed a goblin away. The enemies just kept pouring toward Hoyoung's group, so he pushed ahead with the others, cutting through monster after monster. Bodies piled up, and even MC started to look worn out. This mission really did feel endless. Meanwhile, Seyoung was having the time of his life mowing monsters down, and Hoyoung couldn't figure out why he was so pumped. When he asks if he isn't sick of fighting, Seyoung says no. Chances to farm this much experience almost never happen. That made sense. The 5th floor didn't let them level up at all, because that wasn't part of the story. Seyoung notices the protagonist has already hit level 5, while the protagonist casually kills another monster without even looking. The problem was that level 5 didn't mean much for MC. He had already maxed his stats before that. Then the system informs him, if he wants to go past that, he'll have to train. Grabbing all those items last mission helped, but items alone won't be enough. Then several gunshots ring out, and he turns around. Seyoung is taking down monsters left and right, and her stats are already higher than his. That makes him fume, wondering if assassins even have a limit. Seyoung catches him staring and glares back, asking what he's looking at. She basically asks if he wants to die right there. Hoyoung gives her a thumbs up and says he was just cheering her on. He still thinks her attitude is awful, but thanks to her, the battle is nearly under control. With things settling down, his thoughts return to the pet waiting on the 7th floor, and he silently tells it to hang on. At last, the 7th floor mission is about to start. It's a strengthening zone, and when someone hunts a monster there, they have a chance to get a strengthening crystal. The players wonder if it's like upgrade items in games. The tower explains that they can use gold and those crystals to upgrade equipment, though only weapons and armor can be strengthened. The system window then shows the mission rules. Players can move between the lobby and the 7th floor field to hunt and upgrade gear. The time limit is 72 hours, 3 full days to grind, level up and improve their equipment. Juno says that with no clear condition, the floor probably ends when the timer runs out. Others cheer, saying it feels like a bonus round after all the fighting. One girl points out an item in the shop called Increase in Strengthening Crystal Chance. It raises the drop rate and costs 1,000 gold, so some players buy it right away, planning to max out their gear for the next floor. Now the mission can really begin. Everyone dashes for the portal. Hoyoung notices how excited they all are. He knows that by the end, they'll calm down only after spending every bit of gold they have. For him, wearing the Nick ring makes this place feel like a free extra reward, but his real prize is the pet on the 7th floor. Heading to the portal, he says it's time to get stronger and get a pet. Once inside, everyone starts hunting monsters like crazy. Juno complains that the crystals aren't dropping nearly as often as he thought. Sotang tells him that's because he's not desperate enough. He needs to search like a soldier looking for a lost bullet. Juno has no idea what that is supposed to mean. Nearby, someone is beating up a wolf with a crazy flurry of punches. It's Hoyoung. He's trying not to kill it, but even barehanded he's still too strong for these monsters. Then Sotang shouts that he finally got a strengthening crystal. Everyone turns to him. He grins, says he got lucky, and brags that people have called him the god of strengthening since he was a kid. The protagonist remembers all the other titles Sotang has given himself and wonders how many nicknames this guy has made up. MC calls out to fake Ijiro. The guy instantly refuses to hand over the item, but Nupsi tells him that's not what he wants. He asks Sotang what he's even going to upgrade when he fights barehanded. That hits Sotang hard, and he sinks into despair. He has no gear to use the crystal on. The protagonist drops the poor dog and decides it's not the one. It's too small and too weak to be his pet. Since there was still time left, he kept searching the area, until the system showed only 2 hours remained, so they'd already spent 70 hours here. Hoyoung keeps roaming around chewing his nails from stress because he still hasn't found the pet. He did find a few possible choices, like a king bear. It was cute, but too slow to ride. There was also a black wolf, fast but with terrible stamina. It got tired way too quickly. Then he found a two-headed cat, which was just plain weird. He'd bitten his finger so much it was bleeding. Then he remembers what the guide said. He could have asked where to find the pet. At least he'd gotten 3 crystals, so the trip wasn't a total loss. Still, if he left without a pet, it would feel wasted. Then he hears something in the bushes and spots a shape that grabs his attention. It leaps out, does 3 flips, and lands right in front of Hoyoung. He stares at the monster and wonders if this is finally the one. 2 boxing gloves pop up, and the system identifies it as a level 20 kangaroo. It looks strong, just also really ugly. No way was that ugly kangaroo his pet. Still, he had to make sure. Hoyoung raises his guard, and the monster starts growling in its own language like it already hates him. MC accepts the challenge. The kangaroo lifts its guard too, and they both launch forward at the same time. Their punches crash together, sending out a heavy shockwave. Each one breaks the other's guard, and their fists stop just short of the other's face. The kangaroo swings its other arm in a hammering blow, but Hoyoung slips it by leaning back. Then the beast pulls back its right arm and slams in another punch, but he hops away and avoids that one too. The hit is insanely heavy. This thing's strong. More than that, it's crazy fast. Those legs work like springs. It's basically Bellamy. If Bellamy were a furry from One Piece, the Kangatao jumps so hard it cracks the ground, and in the next instant it's already in front of Hoyoung. The protagonist takes a flurry of punches and realizes all that speed comes from the monster's huge legs. The furry Bellamy gets hyped and asks what MC thinks of its punches. But he is already above it. The Kangatao had only hit an afterimage. He decides the monster isn't cool, or even cute, but it is the pet he came for. He grabs the Kangatao by the ears and climbs onto its shoulders, leaving it stunned by Hoyoung's nerve. The system announces that the protagonist has become the Kangatao's master. It drops to its knees and bows. Now he needs a name. Bellamy would be funny, but MC keeps trying to think of something better for the Kangatao. While it stays bent over, he suddenly gets an idea. Kangasu, after a Korean kid's cartoon. Kangasu seems to love the name and gives him a huge smile, which honestly startles Hoyoung. Maybe he really should have picked a cuter pet. Right then, Kangasu starts glowing. His vision blurs for a moment as the light spreads across the whole area. Once the protagonist can finally see again, he's stunned. Kangatao has turned into a tiny, adorable version of itself, almost like a little rabbit. It's so cute, Hoyoung nearly melts. Then time runs out, and the 7th floor mission ends. Back in the tower lobby, everyone is staring at the floor in shock, while others just look confused. They're all watching tiny Kangatao throw boxing moves around, and asking if that thing is really a kangaroo. Hoyoung tells them to say hello to Kangatao, and the pet gives them a salute. Juno asks what's going on. MC explains that somehow he picked up an extra class and became a tamer. Juno thinks it's strange hearing that from him, and the protagonist realizes that excuse sounds way too weak to believe. But Juno just says one class was obviously too little for someone like Hoyoung. That much was clear to him. Everyone starts congratulating MC and saying this is exactly what they'd expect from Almighty him. A guy like him should have at least 2 classes. Soon they're all calling him Almighty, the protagonist, and someone even greets Kangatao. The pet gets totally confused, wondering if this is some weird cult that worships his master. Holding Kangatao, Hoyoung asks if everyone managed to upgrade their gear. Most of them don't answer. They just look miserable. Things clearly didn't go well, which MC had already started to expect when they fell behind. Then he hears someone laughing and looks to the side. Yunwoo is carrying a new backpack, and the system labels it a high-level leather backpack. Hoyoung remembers the ferry incident, when Yunwoo got one of their hammers, and wonders if that helped him get crystals faster. Using the guide's info, Yunwoo had upgraded the backpack 3 times. He pats Yunwoo on the head, thinking he's smarter than he looks. Even Kangasu gives him praise. Suyun walks up and asks if the protagonist didn't upgrade anything. In response, MC shows off his sword and armor, now both unique rank. He poses proudly, and everyone praises him even more. Hoyoung soaks it up while Suyun trembles with anger because she got no crystals. At that point, he still had no idea what was coming next. People are still calling him Almighty when the lobby torches suddenly go out. Darkness swallows the room, and the players start getting nervous. A voice says they all seem to be doing much better after some time apart. Hoyoung and Seihyun turn toward it and recognize the speaker. Walking toward them was Sniffles. He says they've been living pretty comfortably since he left. Everyone stares at Sniffles, already tense about whatever mission he's about to give them. Sniffles says he prepared a little event for them since they looked bored. Fake Yugero immediately asks what kind of nonsense he's forcing on them this time. Red flames start glowing in Sniffles' hands as he says they've probably all wished they could have someone else's abilities. The players realize he's about to do something. With one wave, Sniffles fires red flames at the torches, lighting the place back up. He says he prepared this event to satisfy those desires. That was his special surprise. Sniffles spreads his arms, and there are more people behind him, a whole group, including a short-haired man with a mustache, standing face-to-face with Hoyoung's team, wearing a creepy, delighted grin. Sniffles tells everyone to enjoy the event as much as they want. Then the system reveals the event mission. Kill players from other areas and gain part of their abilities as a reward. The protagonist is horrified reading it. He knew things had been too calm. He studies the other group and thinks that normal people wouldn't want to kill strangers if they could avoid it. He's just about to try talking things out when Sirion raises her weapon beside him. Hoyoung glances at it, and the other team draws their weapons too. He shouts at Sirion, but she's not listening anymore. Her eyes are locked on the enemy group. Hoyoung feels sick with frustration. He thought she still had at least a little humanity left. Then he remembers. She's the assassin. Now everyone has weapons in hand except MC, while Sniffles stands right between both sides. One of the enemies, Choi Gangdu, shouts that if they're pointing weapons at them, then they must want all-out war. He wonders if they really are going to kill each other exactly how the tower wants. Sniffles covers his mouth in fake surprise and tells them to do their best. Everything is ready. Sniffles is about to send them to the battle stage. He hopes they enjoy it. Hoyoung opens his eyes and finds himself lying in a bed. A system message appears for all players. Anyone who doesn't move to another room within 10 seconds will die. Some panic, others brace themselves, and Hoyoung jumps out of bed. He sprints as fast as he can, while the countdown ticks away. Reaching a door, he grabs the handle and opens it carefully. Then he rushes into another room, room 304, and slips inside at the last second. As soon as Hoyoung enters, someone says they have a guest. A mustached man sits at a table with a glass of water and calmly invites the protagonist to sit down too, calling him by name. Sang-doo is a level 25 commander, even higher than the assassin Chelian. That alone makes him dangerous. The room switch rule was clearly a trap from the tower, pushing rival players into sudden confrontations while they were still panicked enough to attack first. But something else stands out. Sang-doo apologizes that he only has water to offer, and Hoyoung wonders why he's so calm. Just realizing MC was the leader, even at that level, made him uneasy. This wasn't an ordinary guy. Sang-doo says he doesn't plan to attack. If their teams end up fighting, so be it. But he'd rather avoid bloodshed. The protagonist says his side doesn't want to fight either, though maybe Celian didn't get that message. Sang-doo says too much blood has already been spilled, and his voice shakes as he says he doesn't want the tower's dirty tricks to cost him more teammates. The protagonist remembers saying he wouldn't fall for the tower's lies again, and how the others promised to stand by him. Maybe Sang-doo was another victim too, just trying to protect his people. Sang-doo asks if he feels the same, and wants to work together. Hoyoung agrees, but even if they join forces, their teams are split up, so how are they supposed to share the plan? Checking Sang-doo's status, the protagonist notices a skill that might solve that problem. Sang-doo says he has a way, then reveals his ability, telepathy. If the protagonist can promise his group won't attack first, Sang-doo will warn his own team through telepathy. The protagonist is surprised he would reveal a skill like that to an enemy. He must be serious. The protagonist can believe most of his team doesn't want to fight either. The real problem is Selyan. Still, if he wants this mission to end without anyone dying, he has to make this deal work. Sang-doo says his group is peaceful. If no one attacks them, they won't strike first. The protagonist explains that someone joined his group halfway through, and Sang-doo quickly figures out he's talking about Soyeon. The protagonist confirms it, and admits he can't control him, but if Soyeon causes trouble, he'll stop him himself. Sang-doo says he understands. He decides to trust the protagonist, and sends the warning to his team by telepathy. The protagonist changes rooms, and this time finds it empty. That was a relief. Now that the deal with the other leader was done peacefully, all he had to do was find Seoyeon. He brings up a map of the building. After clearing the 7th life floor mission, he had over 50,000 gold, and bought a random skill box from his level 5 shop. Because his shop was ahead of everyone else's, he got access to something rare and useful, the minimap. It let him track players on a small map from anywhere nearby. The skill was almost unfair. Their mission area was a 5-story hotel. For now, everyone seemed safe. He searched for Soyeon, and found him in room 505 on the 5th floor. Then he hears something that makes his heart drop. He turns back, then checks the map again. The red dot that had been in Soyeon's room was gone. Right then the system orders everyone to switch rooms again within 10 seconds. The protagonist sprints to the 4th floor towards Soyeon. Before the timer runs out, he throws open room 401. One of Sang-doo's allies is lying on the floor, and he's already dead. Rage floods the protagonist. He storms at Soyeon, grabs his shirt, and curses him out. Hoyoung demands to know what he did after all the effort it took to negotiate with Sang-doo. Sang-doo looks lost, and says the other guy attacked first, shouting for him to die. The protagonist doesn't buy it, and keeps hold of his collar. Then the system tells him assassins can see how many people someone has killed. He realizes that's one of the assassin class skills, and wonders why that info showed up now. Then he remembers Sang-doo and the way he acted when he spotted the enemy group in the tower's team. Xiaobeiyun yells that he's telling the truth, and asks if the protagonist really doesn't trust him. The protagonist lets go of Xiaobei's shirt and realizes Xiaobei must have seen Sang-doo's kill count before the mission began. Now everything starts to fit. Then Sang-doo appears with a wine glass in hand, and says it's funny they ran into each other again. He invites the protagonist inside to sit. The protagonist asks if he really thinks this was just chance. Sang-doo draws his sword and says they already know the truth, so Sang-doo should stop acting clueless. He calls Sang-doo an assassin, and that finally gets his attention. Sang-doo smiles beneath his mustache, then starts laughing softly, leaving the protagonist confused. He sticks out his tongue with a crazy grin, says the protagonist's skill is pretty interesting, and drops the act completely. The protagonist's hand trembles with anger as he grips his sword and asks why Sang-doo had his own people kill others. If he was that greedy, why not just take all the skills himself? Sang-doo hurls the wine glass at him, and says making his army stronger is the same as making himself stronger. The protagonist cuts the glass in two and senses Sang-doo's allies striking from behind. The commander rushes him with an axe and shouts that he's alone. Does he really think he can beat the whole army? The axe slams down with all his force, and a huge crash follows. A small blast shakes the room. The protagonist says that's too bad. As the dust clears, Shangdu looks confused. Shangdaso stands there, smoke rising from his mouth, an axe in one hand. At the same time, the protagonist blocks the attacks of the other 3 men in the room and faces the commander. He and Kangaso take their stance, and the protagonist says he isn't alone. The commander stares in confusion and asks what that thing is. He calls Kangaso ugly, which instantly makes him furious. The protagonist says he can't really argue with that, and Kangaso turns back at him in shock. The commander says the more he sees, the more interesting the protagonist gets. Still, there were only 2 of them, so it looked impossible to beat everyone there. But the protagonist says this will be easy, and he charges in with Kangaso. With one blow, he slams a man in the stomach. He wants to drop the weaker enemies first. A spearman lunges at him, but the protagonist spots the attack as a tail locks the man's movement. Before he can react, the protagonist kicks him into the wall and knocks him out cold. He praises Kangaso, and the pet grins back. Then the Wolverine wannabe goes after Kangaso, but Kangaso sees it and smashes him so hard his face goes flat. The guy flies away and passes out too. Kangaso says the wannabe's movements were way too obvious. The protagonist looks at the commander and asks what he'll do now that his precious army is already down. The man trembles, stunned that his allies were beaten so fast, but he can't understand why the protagonist didn't finish them off. The men start getting back up to attack again. Shangdu slips back into that twisted grin and says the protagonist is too soft. The 3 attack together, and this time their hits land on the protagonist and his pet. The commander asks if he really thinks someone with that mindset can survive the tower. Shangdu moves in too, and lands a clean hit on the protagonist. Their clash gets so fierce that the walls and furniture are torn apart. The protagonist asks if Kankorso is okay, and he says he is. Then Hoi Yong wonders how they suddenly got so much stronger. He never saw any healing skill used. Looking closer, he finally understands. That bastard had burned his own ally's life force to force an awakening. He, tired and hurt, presses a hand to his bleeding chest wound. The man confirms it with a grin. Their stats had doubled in this state. Then he asks what the protagonist thinks now, as the men loom over him. The protagonist says they'll die if Sangdu keeps draining their life force. A man who treated his own teammates like tools had no right to talk about protecting them. Sangdu tells him not to look at him that way. In the end, his own life matters most. He charges again and says the protagonist didn't get this far without blood on his hands. Hoyong blocks and shoves Sangdu back. He admits Sangdu is right. He's no saint or hero, but if there's any way to save even one more life, he'll keep choosing it. That's the path a real human takes. That's why he doesn't want to kill these men. But if he spares them, his own allies will be in danger. So he says he'll harden his heart and releases a huge blue aura. The man freezes, realizing something about the protagonist has changed. He activates impeccable senses and blue light spreads across the ground again. The 3 attacks close in at once, but Hoyong stays calm. In one blinding move, he slips past every strike and appears behind all 3 men. Then he swings sideways and charges at Sangdu with a shout, making Sangdu scream in panic as the strike comes down. The slash cuts across him diagonally, and blood bursts from his chest. His axe falls to the ground in pieces. Someone laughs. Sangdu drops to his knees and mutters that his luck is awful. He never expected to meet a monster like the protagonist, especially outside a main tower mission. To the commander, his companions had always been nothing but pieces to use and throw away. As he starts to fall, he thinks maybe he was wrong about that. Kangaso lets out a victory cry, and the protagonist only looks back. The system says Hoyong was randomly taking part of his enemy's abilities. Most of the people from Sector C-1520 made it out safely. With the mission cleared, they return to the lobby. Junho asks if everyone made it back, and Sechang admits he was really worried. Junho says he barely got through it, because the enemy he was fighting suddenly vanished. Hearing that, the protagonist thinks everyone managed to stay alive again. Then he glances over and notices Soyeon sitting alone on the stairs. He walks over to her. Once he gets there, Hoyoung says sorry for getting her wrong. Soyeon tells him not to misunderstand. She didn't do it for them. He tells her to be honest for once, but that only annoys her, and she tells him to leave, so he backs off. Feels like those two might end up together, though I still like the cold type more. As MC walks away, he wonders why she became an assassin. She doesn't seem evil at heart, so there has to be some reason behind it. Then the tower speaker turns on and announces the event mission is over. The mission on the 8th floor will start soon. Junho is already complaining, asking if they really have to jump into the next mission this fast. Hoyoung feels their hardest challenge yet is waiting on the next floor. After that battle, the stats he worked so hard to raise go up a little. He gets 5 agility and 3 strength. Still, a fight based on stats alone can turn around in an instant. He remembers what he said about saving more lives, and realizes that if he were weak, those words would mean nothing. Right now, he hasn't earned the right to say them. So for now, all he can do is keep getting stronger. The 8th floor mission is a requalification test. Everyone gathers in the area, waiting to hear what they need to do. Hoyoung stands at the front with his sword ready for the next fight. There are plenty of people here besides his group. Jung-ho asks if this is what he thinks it is, and the protagonist confirms it. Everyone here is a gladiator. On top of that, Ho-young spots a few people who seem seriously strong. A window pops up in front of them, and everyone pulls out their weapons. Then a silhouette appears, and someone wonders if it's Sniffles.